like to be part of the MC team.
You sure?
Yeah. Well, hello. Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. Would you please take your seats? Hello. Hello there. This lady in white here has wonderful fashion sense. Would you like to stand up and model that for us, please? Yeah. I approve. I approve. I do see that I'm the only one dressed for the occasion, though. We'll get to that. We'll get to that a little later. Ah, yes, we have some more in black. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Well done, well done. All right, the room has gone hushed. Are we right to go?
1 minute, just quickly. I've got a little...
Oh, sorry, that's better. That's better. Can you see that from there? Are we right to go? Everybody right to go? Yes? Okay.
Just triggered everyone's PTSD.
All right, yeah, PTSD. Yeah, bad. Wrong town for that joke. Okay, we'll move on from that one. For those of you that may not know me, I'm Topher Fields. I'm a troublemaker from way back. And this is Carly Soderstrom. Could you please welcome Carly to the stage? Now, not as many of you probably know who Carly is, but actually she was really instrumental during the COVID years in her own way. She's got her own story. That's not what today's about. But more importantly, actually, Carly, you're the other half of the Oddcast. Who's heard of the Oddcast? Okay, a few people. Okay, well, hang on. Sorry, hang on. Who's heard of Topher Field in my solo videos? Who's heard of the Oddcast? I'm not trying to start nothing, but...
Guys, help me out.
All right, we have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon ahead of us. We are launching the Victorian campaign for Senate seats and for lower house seats for the Libertarian Party in the coming federal election. Who thought maybe he just wasn't going to call one? He waited so long. So is this actually going to happen? I mean, in one sense I was relieved because at least, better the devil you know sometimes. But, here we are. It's on again. We are on for another election campaign. And Carly, because not as many people necessarily know your background, know your story, I want to introduce you as quite a student of history, actually. This is something that you're very, very keen on.
So what you're telling everyone is I'm a nerd?
You're in the Libertarian Party. I think that's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
So can you tell us, you love history, tell us a bit about the history of the Libertarian Party for anyone that maybe doesn't actually realise there's quite a lot of pedigree here in the party that we're supporting today.
So the Libertarian Party in Australia was founded in 2001, formerly known as the Liberal Democrats, and David Limbrick ran as the Liberal Democrats, and we've had to change the name to the Libertarian Party because someone got their nose out of joint.
Not politicians being shallow?
No, I've never heard of such a thing.
No.
So we are now the Libertarians with some very cool branding. It's nice to see Libertarians organised for once.
Now, well, this room looks awesome, so props to everybody that's worked on the colour scheme and the branding. But can I actually say, I have a real soft spot for the Liberal Democratic Party branding, and I have that specifically because of David Limbrick and Tim Quilty and the absolute legends that they were during the lockdowns. Can we get a round of applause? And in Superman movies, Superman comes out, he's got the symbol on his shirt. The Liberal Democratic Party branding is the closest thing the Victorians had to kind of like that Superman symbol during the lockdowns, right? And actually, if you, like me, are a little bit nostalgic, you can head into the corner during the break or afterwards, and we've actually got some old school Liberal Democratic Party branding, caps and stuff like that. Nicole's holding it up for you right now, down in the back corner there. And you can kind of celebrate a bit of that nostalgia from that era. However, the Libertarians are who we are, and it's how we're branded, it's how we're moving forward into this coming election. Now, how many different places, how many different states have the Liberal Democratic Party, now Libertarian Party, actually successfully had members elected?
So we've had WA, Victoria, New South Wales, and federal.
And federal. So we've actually, so that's an incredibly good pedigree, yeah. One of the things that I love about the Liberal Democratic Party, now Libertarian Party, is that we are a principles-based party. And that's not something that everyone can say. There are a lot of parties out there that are personality-based parties that are driven by this person wants to stand up. And that's great. We love people who stand up. But unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily lead to longevity in a party for obvious reasons. The Libertarian Party have been around now for 24 years and have successfully had succession planning with different people coming in and supporting and driving that vision forward. And what that tells me that this is a party not only with a history of electoral successes, you've just told us, Carly, but it's a party that actually can transform itself and continue to move forward into the future with governance and with real sustainability sustainability in terms of its structure. It's a nerdy thing to get excited about, but it's one of the things I really like about the party. Now, why are you here as a libertarian? We talk about this a lot on our podcast, but apart from the four of you that put your hands up, most of us haven't seen the podcast. So Carly, what made you a libertarian?
All right, so I'm a small business owner, have always been an entrepreneur, and I know what it's like to have the boot of the government on your neck and a bloated bureaucracy making it almost impossible to generate something or innovate in not only the state but the country at large. Australia has a real fascination with red tape and just making things obscenely difficult. But my history has taught me that anything that starts to adopt socialist policies is a very slippery slope, and we've seen this time and time again. We've seen it in our generation. We talk about Venezuela all the time. I've been to Cuba. I've seen what happens when government overreach is not control, or not, control is the wrong word, when it's left unchecked, and I think we are definitely going down that slippery slope. And one of the things that really freaked me out was during the COVID years and seeing the acquiesce of the Australians and how quickly they adopted community policing to ensure that we all complied with these mandates that completely infringed our human rights, which we now know was a definite breach of our human rights.
Did you, who here used to be a conspiracy theorist and now you were just right early? Yeah, everybody. That's why we're in the room, right?
Yeah. And I think what's really important now is we're definitely seeing a split of the polarity of politics, and people are looking for new people to be leaders. And what we want is voices from people who actually live and work in this country, not people who have been in this bloated public service for 20, 30 years and don't know what it's like to actually have to work for a living.
Yeah. Well, we're going to introduce a few guests in just a moment, but before we do, I just want to alert you to the fact that this is both a campaign launch and a fundraiser. Now, you may not have known that it was a fundraiser, but I've actually got a copy of each of my books here, and these aren't just any old ordinary copies. These have been signed by myself, by Carly, and by Jordan, the lead Senate candidate for Victoria. These are the only pair of books signed by that trio. I've dated them as well, so they're a memento in keeping, a memento for you to remember this day. But it's also an interesting test, and we're all libertarians, which means we're all a little bit nerdy, so we're all going to be interested in the outcome of this. Have you heard of the theory of the equilibrium celebrity?
No.
Okay, so if Michael Jordan signed these books, they would instantly be worth 100 times more because it has Michael Jordan's signature. If a 2-year-old scrawled in the cover of the book and you found that when you were shopping, you would ask the shopkeeper if they had one that hadn't been scrawled in because that signature reduced the value of the book. In theory, there is out there a public figure who could sign something and its value would not change at all. That person is the equilibrium celebrity. Now, today, we are going to find out what is the cumulative value of Jordan, Carly, and my signature. These books are worth $80 retail. If they go for $60 in this auction, we will be looking at each other wondering whose signature was it that dragged that down. We're gonna auction these off just before the break. So get your wallets ready for that, because obviously they're going to go for thousands upon thousands of dollars, aren't they, everybody? Aren't they? Okay, moving on. Did you bring the jokes?
You had one job, mate. One job.
You didn't bring the... I can't tell my jokes here, they're not drunk enough.
And there is a police station around the corner.
This is Victoria, I will get arrested. Gosh, okay, so we're going to have an afternoon of zero comedy, completely dry, completely devoid of any humour whatsoever. But before we get to that fun later on, I do want to introduce actually a personal hero of mine. David Limbrick was one of the few who stood up. Along with Tim Quilty, who was also elected for the Liberal Democratic Party at the time. And I will also mention Catherine Cumming, who was an independent as well, who was outstanding. David is a man of uncompromising principles, and that is a very rare thing in politics, and for that alone he stands out. But even better, his principles are libertarian, which makes him one of the good guys, and he's proved that through thick and through thin. He's walked through some very, very hard times, and he stood for us all at that time. Would you please put your hands together and warmly welcome David Limbrick MP.
Thank you so much, Topher and Carls. Why are we here? Well, the reason I'm here and the reason that I first got involved in politics is because we want to change things. We want to change the world and set it in a freer, more freer direction. And that's why I got involved in politics in the first place. And I assume why you're all here as well, because you want to change something. You want to change your state. You want to change your country. Back in the last federal campaign that we had, I was actually running as our Senate candidate. I'd stepped down from Parliament briefly, and my staff can tell you how much of a nightmare that was. But during that campaign, I went to an event, and there was this guy speaking at this event, and his name was Ditloff. I'd never met him before, didn't know much about him, but I sat down and had a listen, and Jordan told his story about his life. I'm not going to tell his story for him, but Jordan's had quite a remarkable change in his life. He's changed direction. Not many people can do that with their life. They can just make a decision and then go on a totally new arc. Everyone has the capability to do it, but very few actually do it. And Jordan did that. And since then, after that campaign, Jordan became more involved with the party, putting his hand up to volunteer for all sorts of things, including as part of our executives and this sort of thing. And I've gotten to know Jordan really closely over the last few years and been working with him a lot on the campaign that's happening now. But the important thing for any political party, and this is what makes us different, and this is what Topher spoke about before, is the way that we adhere to principles. And it's really important for political parties that are based on principles. If they're going to get someone elected, they get someone elected who actually has those principles and will prosecute those principles, because many other parties that we spoke about before that are based on personalities, when they get people elected, it's sort of a bit of a random thing and you're not really quite sure who you're going to get when you get elected. But I'll say this much about Jordan. I can't think of anyone better to represent our party and represent our beliefs than Jordan in the Senate for Victoria. But let's be realistic. This is a difficult goal. It's certainly achievable, but it's a difficult goal. But if we achieve that, and if we achieve it, it'll be because of the people in this room here today. I'm hoping that in a few months' time, everyone in this room will be able to say, I was there and I helped get Jordan elected into the Senate. That's what we want to do. Now, if Jordan gets elected, that's really important for Victoria and for our party as a whole for a number of reasons. Firstly, you might notice many of the issues that I have been talking about recently, like excise tax, although they affect the state of Victoria and affect Victorian politics, they're actually federal issues. And in fact, many of the issues that we care about are actually federal issues. And other parties, like the Greens, for example, they do a great job at cooperating between their state and federal counterparts. And I think that if we manage to get Jordan into the Senate, if you think about those first 100 days after that, the types of things that could happen, Jordan can instantly walk into those spaces that we've already created a name for ourselves in and cooperate with us in Victoria. I think that this will have a massive amplifying effect for our party and also greatly raise the profile of our party generally throughout the state. Having a senator is a big deal. We've only had it once before. That was in New South Wales. We've never had a Victorian senator. But getting someone elected to the Senate in Victoria is important for some other reasons as well. It helps us make sure that we have longevity in the party, because a Senate term is for 6 years. But also, it's probably the single most important thing for the next state election next year. So even if you don't care about federal politics, you only care about state politics, but I expect you care about both, it's still very important because it will dramatically raise the probability next year when we have a state election of raising our party profile into the minds of as many Victorians as possible, so that we can have a situation where we get a number of people elected in Victoria as well. We've had 2 people in the last term. Unfortunately, this term we only have 1. But if in the next term of Parliament, in the next election, we could get, say, 3 or 4 people elected, that would totally change the way Victorian politics works. Because what it would mean is that it doesn't matter who's in power, whether it's Liberal or Labor, we can be in a position where we can hold the line on our principles and force them to the table. At the moment, the only way that we can force them to the table is by me making lots of noise in the media and embarrassing the hell out of them, which I'm very good at, but... But ultimately, I'm only one vote. I'm only one vote. I don't hold the balance of power. It's quite rare that my vote is the deciding vote. But if we could get 3 or 4 Libertarians elected, that would totally change. And I think that's a really important thing for Victoria. In the Senate, Jordan has, I think, the possibility of forming either, hopefully we get people elected in other states as well. I know other states are focusing on getting senators elected. It may even be possible that we get multiple Libertarian senators elected. But even if we don't, I'm sure Jordan will be able to form alliances with other people in the Senate on areas that we agree with. And it may very well be that Jordan, plus these loose alliances, may be the deciding factor on a number of really important issues to our country. And there's some really important stuff coming up that we need to really focus on. You know, there's so many things happening at the moment, and the major parties are both seem to be heading in the same direction in so many areas. We've seen in Victoria what can happen when you have even just a lone voice pushing the envelope, pushing the window in a direction that other people haven't been pushing it before. And others watch that, they see that. And I want Jordan to do that in the Senate so that he can be a voice that will say, hang on, are we doing the right thing here? Maybe we should do this other thing. Maybe we shouldn't restrict people's speech even more. Maybe we shouldn't be growing the size of government. Maybe we should be reducing it. And I think that Jordan can do that. And I want everyone in this room to do everything that you can, please, to try and help Jordan get over the line and get him elected to the Senate for Victoria. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. And David's been representing libertarian values just at an outstanding level for many years now. But as he rightly says, we need more. We need federally. And Jordan, as the lead Senate candidate, is obviously in the box seat to do that, but he's by no means the only candidate. We have some outstanding people that are giving up time and energy and effort to be able to campaign in a variety of seats around Victoria for this upcoming federal election. So what I'd like to do now is, Carly, we're going to introduce all the candidates. Now, can we get a round of applause for each one as they come up, please?
All right, well, let's start with Josh Yotoyo from Menzies.
Now, we're going to see how we go getting everyone on the stage. We're about to find out whether Libertarians can share. Good luck to us all. Tim Quilty unfortunately can't join us, but he wanted me to let you know that it's because he's working hard campaigning and the rest of you should be ashamed of yourselves for being here instead of out on the hustings. No, but Tim is out in Beechworth campaigning. Our next candidate is Will Vandermeer for Deakin. Please come on up.
Our next candidate for Aston is David Fawcett.
Woo! And we have Simon Wilson for Gippsland.
And for Bruce, we have Christine Scrobo.
Here she comes. And for Kooyong, we have Richard Peppard. Richard, are you here? I haven't seen Richard's face so far this evening, or today. All right, Richard may not be with us today. He must be out on the hustings as well. I'm sure he's taken Tim's advice and he's working hard.
For Goldstein, we have David Siegel.
And in outstanding fashion, the candidate for Corangamite has walked through the door 3 seconds before his name was about to be called. Would you please welcome Paul Barker You were working hard, Paul, weren't you? You were out there winning votes, dedication.
For Mallee, we have Jeff Barry.
All right, and now to our Senate candidates. So all these candidates are running in the lower house. They're going to be duking it out in that very, very challenging position, trying to win lower house seats and also just raise awareness and raise the brand to give a better chance to our Senate candidates as well. And our Senate candidates are Stephen Matulek.
And we have Matt Ford.
Now, before I get to our lead Senate candidate, everyone here agrees, I'm sure, that we need more just normal human beings in politics, right? We're sick and tired of these Liberal and Labor Party apparatchiks who've spent their entire lives in student politics. They're all lawyers. And yet somehow we selected a lawyer as our lead Senate candidate. I am going to have words with some people, but would you please welcome Jordan Ditloff? All right, we're going to give a moment for the photographers to do their thing, to be able to get some good shots of all of the Libertarian Party candidates for 2025. And then 3, 2, everyone cheese. Not you, no. All righty, thank you. Can we get one more round of applause as these guys head back to their seats? We are going to hear from Matt and from Jordan a little later in this afternoon's proceedings. You know, Carly, we talk about a lot of different things on our podcast, the Oddcast, by the way, available on Spotify and Apple.
I expect to see our downloads to go
through the roof.
Correct.
Hang on, who's tech savvy here? Anyone a bit tech savvy? Could you just write a script that opens up like anonymous browsers and just keeps downloading our podcast for us? Just get our numbers up for us.
Chinese bot phones?
Yeah, but I'm sure there's someone savvy enough to do that here. You tell me a lot about what's going on in Victoria, and I don't mean to brag, but I got out of Victoria. I didn't go far, I just went to Albury, and Albury's the perfect spot. I live on a hill, and it means I can look down on you from where I am. Do you remember that scene from The Lion King where he's like, all this land that you see will someday be yours. What about that shadowy place? That's Victoria. We don't go there. That's how it feels living on a hill in Albury, I can tell you that. But you've been keeping me up to date about some of the challenges, and in a sense it's also the opportunities as well that we have in Victoria as Libertarians.
I think what we're seeing with Victorians now, they're completely disenfranchised, and what they're looking for is a new leadership. And I think they're both, like, people across the board are just fed up with the major parties. Whether Liberal, Labor, it's two wings to the same bird. And now there's conversations that are available to us that maybe weren't available during a certain time not so long ago, if you know what I'm saying.
We don't talk about the war.
And so what you're seeing now is Victorians, under the lockdown COVID conditions, the breaches on human rights, the mandates, now a cost of living crisis, we're having massive blowouts in the public service, a bloated public service, and a suburban rail loop that seems to be dominating the media sphere, and no one wants to talk about the fact that 14-year-olds are ransacking homes with machetes. You know,
you haven't had any...
So, my apologies, Jordan.
You haven't had any sort of personal experience with any of that, have you?
I just had my car stolen whilst I was asleep.
And then again while you were at work.
And whilst I was working,
Yeah.
$11,000 of gear stolen.
And you had like armed thugs inside your house. So no personal experience at all for you.
No. And what I can say is that this conversation is no longer divided by politics. This is just everyday people who are now having these conversations. You just have to go onto, if you dare, to venture to Facebook comment groups, Instagram, and even X, and just see how people are fed up. They just want leadership. They don't want to be dictated to. They don't want someone to make them feel guilty for daring to use their opinions and speak up. What we've had for too long in Victoria is the conversation's been silenced. Get in line, be compliant, do as you're told, do it for the greater good, and it's time that people start to feel that freedom to be able to express themselves and have these conversations, which is why I think the Libertarians have such a big opportunity ahead. Yeah,
I think you've used the right word there to say that there is the opportunity for these conversations. Opportunities have to be seized. They have to be made the most of. There is this opportunity sitting in front of all of us right now to have conversations, and I've observed in my 16 years as a political commentator that people don't care about politics until it hurts them. And this is the silver lining now. Unfortunately, a lot of people are getting hurt, but that opens them up.
Well, I mean, we saw that during COVID. That divide was incredible. You had the laptop class who were largely disaffected by COVID, and then you had the small business community that were completely decimated by it. And what you see there is that, oh, it's not happening to me, therefore I don't care. But now these are all of our problems, and it's no longer us versus them. I mean, we're preaching to the converted. You guys are all libertarians, right? Otherwise, why would you be here? I hope that makes sense.
You are libertarians, right?
Right?
We checked your ID
I mean, we are overdressed, but I'm pretty sure we're in the right room. But what we're seeing now is like, you guys, we're preaching to the choir. You guys know how we feel. We all agree with the same principles. But now there's conversations that are available to you that weren't available years ago. And I encourage you guys to start having them.
One of the ways that we have very important conversations as a culture is actually through comedy. And I just want to really compliment the foresight of the Libertarian Party leadership here, inviting me to be the MC and recognising the desperate need to also have a comedian on the ticket was great foresight on your part. And so would you please put your hands together for someone who is willing to have some of these uncomfortable conversations, who is willing to be a little bit out there, and that is why we love him. Would you please put your hands together for Gabriel Rossi?
I know why I was invited here, because I'm one of the few comedians that just, refuses to bow to the woke bullshit that, we cop in our society. And where to, but better, where could be a better place than in front of people that just argue, about free speech, One of my talents over the years was being able to do good accents. And apparently that's cultural appropriation now. When I was a kid growing up, I would tan up very well in summer. And quite frankly, I was probably the darkest skinned kid in my class back then. I was the black kid. I had it, everyone called me Gab or Gabby back then. And they came up with a really cool, funny nickname. They called me Gaborigine. True story. Then you can fast forward to the modern day now, and all of a sudden I'm a privileged white male and middle-aged. What happened? But I can do a good Aboriginal accent, see, but you can't do that on stage, but I will today. Well, I mean, it was back in, I started comedy back in the 90s, so a lot has sort of changed. It was still there. It was sort of in its early stages, the whole woke thing. And so it was still an issue. However, you could, cut a bit more slack. But I used to do this routine, and it wasn't by any means bashing our Indigenous friends. Like, in fact, it was kind of talking about when white man first came to Australia, and, because a lot of people, and I've always had a bit of a interesting conversation here and there about people that say, why didn't they put up a fight? When the white man came. And I had a theory that they probably did. They probably did try and resist. I can just picture it now. Botany Bay, 1770 or whenever they first came here, I don't know when it was. But put it this way, you can just picture this, right? Bunch of ships coming in and all the tribal people and, what's going on here? And then they get the leader, and the leader comes out. And he's calling out to the white man coming over, in the ship saying, hey, brother, this our land. What you doing here? You have to go, mate. This our place. Go away. But then they pulled out the guns and started shooting all the other guys. Okay, you can come here. There's plenty of room. No worry, brother. See, you reckon I could do that routine now at the comedy festival? No chance. But I do love accents. What my favourite accent was growing up? The Maltese accent. I love it. So they've got very funny inflections, the way they speak. Their inflections in a sentence are all over the place. There's no, like, you and I would say something like, hey mate, get off the road, there's a car coming. That's how we would say it. Not them. No, this is like, get off the road, there is a car coming. I still love that accent so much. It's so funny. I liked it so much that I had Maltese friends, I would ring them up just to hear their parents answer the phone for a laugh, Yeah, ring, ring, hello. G'day, Mr. Micallef, it's Gabriel here. Is Johnny there? Mister, this is his mother. Sorry. Yes, they also had deep voices. Obviously, I can do the Italian accent. I mean, you know, corrupt. I got married to an Aussie back in 1999, and that didn't work out, by the way. You know, cultural differences. She used to always complain, "What are we going to visit your mum for? We went there last year." You know, like, what do you mean you have to work? Anyway, so I brought her to be, when I started dating her, right, she'd never been in an Italian house before, ever. So I invited her to meet my family, you know. Anyway, get there, there's me mum. I go, "Cully, that's me mum." She goes, Who's that guy?" I said, "It's my dad." She goes, "Oh, wow, they're still together." Anyway, and sorry, I love that joke. Anyway, because they weren't. Anyway, so anyway, we sit down for dinner. Now, everyone knows Italians are very chatty, yeah, and quite loud, yeah. So not only are they that way, but if you go and visit an Italian for the first time in their home, they will not modify their behaviour to suit a new guest. They don't give a shit, right? They'll basically just act like, you know, you've been there a million years and they don't care. So of course, this young lady sitting at the table with these two Italians, full on yelling across the table, 2 metres apart. They were yelling at the top of their voice, right? They didn't care. She's sitting there with her eyes wide open. Of course, they were talking in Italian, so she had no idea what they're talking about. So she's pulled me aside and she said, "What's going on here? What are they arguing about?" I said, "They're not. They're actually just talking about work and stuff. It's just a conversation, you know." She goes, "Really, that's how they talk?" And I said, "Yeah, every night." She goes, "You're kidding. What do they do when they argue?" I said, "They don't talk." That could last for years. It's funny, when we broke up, actually, my mum, they actually were quite close, believe it or not. They you know, formed a bit of a strong friendship, and mum was pretty devastated, of course, but obviously worried about me because, you know, I'm the youngest in the family, you know. And she's rung me up, bawling her eyes out down the phone. "What are you going to do now?" she's saying. I said, "Mum, don't stress. I'll be all right. You know, I'll just get on with my life and move on, you know." She goes, "Yeah, but I was talking to your father. He said maybe you should have come back and live with, you know, us for a little while till you get back on your feet, you know." I said, "Mum, I'm 32 and I've got the house. I'm still in the house, so I've got somewhere to live and it's all good." She goes, "Yeah, I know, but you know, you got nobody to look after you now." I said, "Mum, I was married to an Aussie for 4 years. No one looked after me the whole time, mate." By the way, for the Aussies in the room that might have taken a little bit of offence to that, not that I know you guys generally would, but just in case you're feeling a little bit put out by that, don't take it personally, okay? The moral of the story is, if you marry a comedian and dump him, you're going to be in the fucking show, right? So now I'm going through divorce number 2, so she's in the show too. Oh yes. This marriage lasted a little bit longer. It was a 17-year marriage, and to an Italian girl, Italian backgrounded girl, who happened also to be a police officer. Yeah, I know. I loved it though, because you can call your wife a pig. It's hilarious. And we ended up buying a house out in back of Smash, and now she's a bush pig. But anyway, everyone in the room's going, "Gee, I wonder why she left him." No, she liked that joke. She just didn't like me. 2 kids. One was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3.5, and it's a pretty serious thing, but mate, he's doing great. He's 13 now. He's really doing well. But, you know, I remember thinking, you know, some pretty weird stuff going on with this kid when he was at that age. He was just way beyond his years in certain levels of intelligence, and, you know, we drove... Like, he was always on his iPad as a 3-year-old. A lot of 3-year-olds do that. But my son wasn't watching stupid little kids' cartoons. He was studying stuff on YouTube. Like, this 3 years old. Like, I'm talking alphabet, solar system, shapes, colours. He knew every shade of colour, you know, and he knew all the different types of shapes. I once left a 50-cent piece on the table, and he picked it up at 3.5 and said, "That's a dodecahedron." He said those words. So one day we're driving past a church, actually it was in the city, in St. Patrick's, big cathedral with a big pointy, you know, like spires at the top. And I swear to God, I'm not making this up, 3 years old, He pointed to the top of the building and goes, look, Daddy, that's an isosceles triangle. Yeah, I had to pull over and Google what the bloody hell an isosceles triangle was. Yeah, so it was, it's been interesting. We've had a few challenges though, raising a kid with autism. Toilet training was particularly difficult. Oh yeah, because they're very stubborn. They've got set in their ways, in their daily routines, as you well know. And by the age of 5.5, he was still refusing to poo in the toilet. What he would do, he would say, I've got to do poos, and we would have to give him a pull-up nappy that he would put on himself and go behind the couch and do his business. It's pretty funny, actually. It's very funny. But, of course, he's 5.5. He's starting school in a few weeks, and we're starting to go, well, that's not going to fly at school. We really have to get this kid using the toilet. So we sat him down. We said, Anton, can't do this anymore. You have to start using the toilet. And he just was refusing point blank. We said, well, we're not going to give you a pull-up anymore. That's it. From this point on, every time you need to poo, you're going to have to go to the toilet. And he just looked at us and he just said, well, that's it then. I'm never going to poo again. And you may laugh at that, because we did at the time, but the little shit meant it. And he lasted 7 days. Yeah, he refused to go. He just point blank refused, right? He literally just stuck it out. He ate normally. He didn't stop eating. Right? And after 5 days, we're down the chemist saying, we need some stronger stuff here, mate. This kid's, because we were giving him we were giving him laxative, mate. And he still wouldn't, even with laxative, he was still holding on. So we gave him some stronger stuff, and it still took another almost 2 days before finally he caved in and sat on the toilet and did a poo. And oh my God, it was so, you could see the relief on his face, and we were relieved and we were stressing out. It was such a tough week. But on a positive note, we now know what to do if we ever want to smuggle drugs. Oh my God. Because man, can he control that arsehole. I think Jesus. So yeah, he done well. So it's been an interesting time, the last 18 months. I'm going through this again, and I've went off the rails, driving around, doing Uber Eats. Yeah, I was doing Uber Eats because I didn't want to do gigs anymore with all the trouble I was in. It just was all, because I remember walking into a pizza shop 18 months ago. And what do you guys notice about pizza shops these days? 99 times out of 100? Not Italians in there anymore, is there? No, they're Indians. The Indians are taking over all the pizza shops. And as an Italian, I'm affronted by that, right? Because, pizza's supposed to be made by Italians, right? That's our thing. So I thought, fuck that. I'm going to become an Uber driver. I'll take their fucking jobs, right? You know how funny it is walking into a pizza restaurant, being Italian, to pick up pizza off Indians? It's like bizarro world, man. But in a relationship sense, I've had it, I reckon I've done it pretty bad. I've done it really tough. And took this second breakup really, really hard. And it's been from a relationship sense, it's been a very sad story. But in the last 8 months, I've met a new girl, and she's from Thailand. She's a Thai girl, and it's going really well. She's lovely, and so chances are, having a Thai girlfriend, my story might have a happy ending. I know what you're thinking, you guys. Yeah, no, I wasn't talking about that. And besides, she hates it when I do that to her. But anyway. See, that's another topic you can't do in comedy. The trans thing, you can't do that. No. I mean, I feel sorry for my mate years ago. I still remember it. It was like, went to a nightclub one night, and my mate was talking to this beautiful girl for probably a couple of hours. They were having drinks, and she seemed really nice, and God damn, she was, really beautiful, right? Anyway, at the end of their conversation, it was getting late, and my mate was talking about leaving, and he goes, listen, I've really enjoyed talking to you, but, I've got to go soon, and I'd love to get your number, and maybe we can catch up and do something. And the lady said, well, that's great. I appreciate that, and I like you too, but I'm just wondering, you do realise I'm trans? And he had no idea at that point. And of course, he pretty much shit himself. He did. Because, he freaked out and didn't know what to do and just walked away. He just walked away because he was in shock. He had no idea. And, he was telling us about it the next day, and he was like, He actually felt bad for walking away because he knew that it was the wrong thing to do, but he just lost his mind. And then he was also sitting there going, I can't believe it though. It's like, there's no way that I could have picked that she was trans because everything about her was very feminine and I was just in so much shock when she said it. I didn't know what to do. And one of my mates, a bit of a dickhead, right? What did he say? He goes, next time you're in that situation, just look at their throat. You know, because it got like Adam's apple, you know, and I'm like, I'm in the room now and I'm like, why don't you just look at the dick? But anyway, like, anyway. How do you reckon that'd go on Comedy Gala? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me this time around. I'm coming back a bit later, going to do a bit of music for you, but I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, thanks very much. Enjoy. Great crowd. Thank you.
Well, it's amazing that I don't have you at the comedy festival. I heard people are dying to get in there. Too soon? Too soon? Way to not follow a comedian. All right, so what we have next is actually a panel to respond to the budget. Who thought the budget was good?
Tell us how you really feel, mate.
Who thought the budget was not? Yeah, just a little. So if there's one thing that libertarians should be pretty good at, it's budgeting. Because, I don't know if you've noticed, but we're all a bit nerdy. I once joked with my wife, actually. We went to the Libertarian conference in Sydney, or the Friedman conference in Sydney, and this was her first time. And it's always a baptism of fire. She hadn't realised just how nuts her husband was, and she was going to see me in my natural environment for the first time. And I was quite nervous. And she walked up to me after about 5 minutes, and she looked at me and she said, "These people desperately need help with their marketing." And I said, "Yes, but you should see the quality of their spreadsheets." And so if there's one thing that we ought to be good at, it's going to be the numbers. It's going to be the budget. And I'm very, very pleased to say that actually libertarians are very good at that stuff. It's just that everybody else doesn't listen to us. But we happen to have two wonderful, wonderful people giving the libertarian budget reply. I'm told this is not just a reply to the budget, this is a reply to the budget reply as well. Would you please take it away?
A man that needs no introduction. He is the founder of
But
this
we'll give
party.
him one anyway.
We'll give him one anyway. Yeah. He's the founder of the Libertarian Party, Dr. John Humphreys.
Dr. John Humphreys, indeed.
G'day, James.
And also joined by a long-time libertarian campaigner and champion of liberty, Brian Marlow. Please welcome.
I don't see a Brian. I'm not sure what's here. If you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Am I coming through there? Can people hear me?
All right. Now, thank you for joining us, John and Brian. I wanted to do this event during the week anyway, and I thought given we're going to be here with all of our friends at the campaign launch, it would be a great way to make sure that there's something that they have to pay $25 to get. So without further ado, I think I'd love to hear, Brian, you've been around the halls of Canberra. I think you're the closest thing we could describe to a freedom lobbyist. Like a lobbyist that's actually on our side, trying to push for issues like free speech, trying to push for issues like legalising vaping and many other solid issues. What's been the mood in Canberra, both around the budget and the response to the budget? Oh, is Brian not there? Sorry. I couldn't see what was on the other screen. So if Brian's not there, right, sorry. I saw the panel and I heard him being introduced, so I thought he might have appeared. But
If John could talk so we could check his audio's coming through,
yeah, that's right. Well, John, what's your, you sort of still know quite a few people in and around Canberra, and you've certainly had some opinions on the quality of the budget and the response to the budget. What's your overall impression of the themes of this year's budget?
Yeah, look, I'm not that close to the action in Canberra these days. I give that stick to Brian.
That's right. Well, while we wait for John to emerge from audio purgatory, they say never work with children and animals, and I think we can add economists to that list, perhaps. But there we go. I knew that would summon the audio gods. I'm sorry, John. I had to stall for time.
Tell me if that's working now. Oh yes, all right. I'm hearing myself in feedback, which is terrible. All right. Um, Look, I'm not that close to the Canberra bubble these days, so I'll steer clear of that. But I have been following budgets for far too long, which is a very weird hobby and probably marks me out. It's a very strange person to start with. But look, I've started to get a bit bored with following budgets because they all follow roughly the same theme these days, and they have for quite a while, with a few exceptions. And that is nearly every time you can go and you find the deficit is far too big. It's $42 billion, $42 billion in this year, which is the sort of deficit you only have in times of like war or crisis or something like that. And we just kind of walked into it. No one's even talking about it, but no one's talking about it, mostly including myself, just because we've come to expect it now. Expectations have been set so low. New spending, $7 billion of new spending in this year alone, and then further in the out years. That isn't stuff they had to do. That isn't just keeping the lights on. That's just new discretionary spending in the last few months. But again, I say that it's almost becoming boring to say because everyone expects it. So this budget had a far too big a deficit, far too much unnecessary spending, and no real reform. And yet, with having said all of that, the big takeaway, the unexpected part, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around, was that the Labor Party offered income tax cuts. Now, they are small, they are far too small, but I didn't expect that, and that is an interesting step. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, hallelujah, the Liberals are going to have to come out and trump that. They're going to have to beat that. They can't be the high taxing party, surely. Surely. Which is why I was just blown away on Thursday that the Liberals have now committed to increasing the income taxes back up. So far, you may have noticed over the last couple of months, every time Labor has a new spending proposal, pretty much before they finish the sentence, the Liberals have run in front of a camera and said, me too. I'll spend that money too. Anything you can spend, I can spend it, plus 10%. The only policy of Labor's they don't want to copy was the income tax cut. And I'm just boggled by that. It's
look, yeah.
Gordon?
I totally agree with you, John, and I think that you and I don't think were ever silly enough to be a member of the Liberal Party, whereas much to my great dishonour and shame, probably every time I say this is like, people laugh, but it's kind of true. I'm more ashamed and embarrassed of my past as a young Liberal than I am of my criminal record. But like, despite long disassociation and long disappointment with the Liberal Party, they always seem to, just when you think it's rock bottom, it turns out there's actually a further subfloor or a sub-basement. And I was shocked by that as well. But before we unpack that a bit, because I do want to come to the budget response, is it also, I suppose, in a sense, factually true when the Labor Party say that they have done better on managing the economy than the previous Morrison government? Like, they have actually, yes, delivered a deficit in the last 2 years, and I know last year they were talking about the tiny surplus from the year before, which is another pet peeve of yours, but in the sense that the forecast budget deficits and debt under the Morrison government for this period we're now in were higher than what Labor has delivered. Is this sort of new Labor as responsible economic managers, do you think that is objectively true, and do you think it's going to be accepted by the electorate?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be accepted. Look, it's not true. It's quite remarkable. You can nearly disregard nearly everything that both the major parties say about themselves. It's so full of spin and bullshit on both sides. Look, what happened is the Treasury made a bunch of modelling errors. And so after Labor got in, they were just smacked in the arse with a revenue sort of windfall. So that was great news for them as far as how the budget looked. They did nothing to create that. There was no reform that created that. There was no policy change that created that. This Treasury does modelling, and sometimes they screw up their modelling. So they modelled one thing, and then they went, oh no, our model was wrong. And then they did a revised model with higher revenue. So it has nothing to do with Labor. Labor then had that extra revenue, which a lot of it has come from bracket creep. I don't know if we want to do a deep dive for that, or you got Topher in the room. He did a wonderful video recently explaining bracket creep. If you don't know what it means, go and check out Topher's video. But it basically means inflation gives the government a free hidden tax increase worth billions of dollars every year. So we've had very high inflation for the last couple of years, so massive bracket creep tax increases. And so the government got all of this extra tax revenue in by screwing over the taxpayer. I would argue that your moral obligation and just good economic policy then is to give some of that back to the taxpayer, but instead they've spent most of it. Right, so they just got smacked in the ass with this revenue windfall, and they've just used it to keep propping up their old broken spending projects and creating new spending projects, which is why we've seen this massive increase in tax and revenue under this government. So they don't deserve any of the credit for that, right? They also, it's not an issue of credit or blame. It's just a modeling issue, which is out of their control. It's just a thing that is. You don't get to take credit for that. So that's a bullshit narrative. What they have done is they've taken a budget that could have sustainably gone back into surplus for a while with all of this revenue. And then there's two things they could have done that would have been somewhat responsible there. I think they should have given us back that money in tax cuts. I could imagine some people who are less inclined towards tax cuts as myself would say, all right, well, why not pocket the money and not run deficits? Both of the, I argue for the tax cuts, but if someone's saying, run a budget surplus, reasonable people can argue about that. They haven't done either. Right? They've taken the extra revenue, spent the extra revenue, our taxes are far too high, and we've got debt and deficits as far as the eye can see. I don't think they get to take any credit for that. So that's a big mark against them. Although I note it's so difficult here. We so, like you were saying, we fall into the trap sometimes of just wishing the Liberals could be what they had on their We Believe statement and what they sometimes claim they are while in opposition. But it's not like they've opposed any of this spending. And as we've just seen, they clearly aren't going down the path of giving us the income tax cuts. And no one's offering to index tax brackets, which is what they really should be doing.
Absolutely. And I read something in the past week or so. I think I've had to listen more to Jim Chalmers talking about this budget than any human being should have to. So please don't follow that. I had to, regrettably, as the candidate. You don't have to, and I wouldn't recommend listening to about 4 or 5 pre-budget interviews from Jim Chalmers. But what I did kind of come across is this statistic that apparently the stage 3 tax cuts, or the modified stage 3 tax cuts that were passed in the last 12 months, the tax cuts that were passed on to taxpayers were basically, or will be, eradicated by bracket creep within 18 months. So that's just to give you an idea of how they are, with one hand giving and with the other hand taking. And that's not to mention the other thing that we're going to talk about when we come to the coalition response, which is excise. The coalition have proposed, what amounts to a pretty C-grade version of our policy. They've basically said, oh, look, that looks like it's pretty popular that people don't like fuel excise. We're going to cut that by 50%, and then in tiny, tiny, tiny little fine print in the caption of the photo for 12 months. And I really don't understand what the purpose of announcing you're going to temporarily reduce the tax burden is, but I'm imagining they just didn't want to say there were going to be further deficits down the track. But what kind of a mark do you give that from an economic policy point of view, John?
Just quickly go back to the first thing you mentioned there about bracket creep. Look, it's the stage 3 tax cuts that the Liberals introduced and then were finalised once Labor got into power, but they don't get any credit for. I would say that is basically the only good piece of economic reform our country's had in pretty much 25 years, like this century, pretty much, which is an embarrassing thing to say because it's not that great a reform, but it is good, right? So, they get 2 pats on the back for that reform. But like you say, that stage 3 tax cuts compensated us for about 2 years of bracket creep, 1 to 2 years of bracket creep. Keep this in mind, it took 6 years to bring it in. It was introduced 6 years ago. So it takes 6 years to introduce a reform that only compensates us for 2 years of bracket creep. And of course, the wise and better people than us at the ABC refer to this as, slashing taxes. Taxes have been cut far too much. Taxes have gone up over the last 6 years, even if you factor in stage 3. So stage 3 was nowhere near enough. We need a stage 4 and a stage 5 and a stage 6. And you've heard me talk about that one before. But yeah, so going on to the Liberals' fuel tax cut, look, I can see why they've done it. I think it's probably good politics. People straight away are potentially going to be offered cheaper petrol in the near future. You can see why that would be enticing. I just find it's remarkable that the Liberals are saying they will offer a temporary fuel tax cut in exchange for permanently higher income taxes. And I am just, as I said at the beginning of this, I am baffled that we are in a world where they are saying that sentence. And then they're justifying it exactly the same way the Greens or the ABC would. The budget can't afford to give tax cuts. As if the government has the inherent right to our money and they just decide to divvy some of it back, and not even that much. And then the Liberals are saying, oh, it's a small tax cut. I agree. So to my mind, it's a small tax cut, ... so we should have a bigger tax cut. But the Liberal Party logic seems to be, it's a small tax cut, ... therefore we shouldn't have it. And I don't know if that's going to sell. Look, I think people are going to like the fuel tax cut, but if people end up internalizing the idea that you get a temporary tax cut on fuel in exchange for a permanently higher income tax regime, and then, look, here's I don't know, sting in the tail, a potentially positive story in the tail. And I never thought I would say this sentence in my life. If Dutton wins, when the Liberals try to increase the income tax rates, they may not be able to get away with it because Labor, the Greens, and the Teals might block the Liberal Party tax increase. What planet am I on?
Of course, Libertarians elected in the Senate would join that vote. We would absolutely vote against the Liberal Party's income tax increases. Again, you're right. It is a world I didn't think I would be in. But staying on the topic of excise, there was another really interesting item in the budget that I was paying attention to. David alluded to it earlier when he was talking about the first 100 days of Libertarian federal state representation, and that is the tobacco excise. So in the MyIFO, they had basically conceded that there was I believe, $5 billion reduction in the estimated tobacco excise intake. They had originally estimated 14 billion and they revised it down to 9. And in the budget this week, we learned that that has been further revised down in a period of about 3 months to 6.4 billion lost out of the estimated 14 billion predicted tobacco excise. So we're at a point now where they predicted 14, they've got 7.6, so they're basically 50% off. And we know that that market activity in the tobacco sector isn't due to smoking rates declining because they've plateaued. We know that that represents the market share of organised crime, who are responsible very efficiently, I might add. Like, they're doing a great job in terms of if your business is making sure people can smoke tobacco for a cheap price, readily available, organised crime gets a gold star. You know, like, they're not paying tax, but they're much more efficient at that than the government. Now, that being the case, one of the Libertarian policies is that we need to slash tobacco excise, both because we need to combat those issues that they create with black markets and organised crime. But as an economist, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Laffer curve. That is the idea that we could actually, given that we're essentially charging, say, 100% of what the tobacco excise is and getting 50% return, is it, or could it be the case that if we reduce tobacco excise by half and slashed it by 50%, permanently, not for 12 months, organised crime can wait 12 months, they've definitely put away money for the difficult times. But if we were to slash tobacco excise permanently by 50%, do you think that would actually make a difference to the dollar tax intake that the government receives? And what do you think the impact of that would be on the black market?
Yeah, well, I mean, from the numbers you've given, I mean, it's quite clear that we are past, I guess, what you could informally call like the tobacco Laffer maximum. We're past the point where increasing the rates is clearly now decreasing the revenue because it's encouraging this behavioural shift. And so logically then, if you cut rates, you might be able to get that revenue up, or at least not lose much revenue. Kind of depends how much you cut rates, though, Jordan. I suspect your instinct would be to cut them enough to actually decrease revenue, and God bless you for that. But you know, that's a part of it, what's at play here. Although I think a big part of what's at play is not just people switching from buying their tobacco from legally to the black market. A big part of this is, I think I'm behind you, Jordan, so I don't know if you can see me, but I'm holding up a vape right now. A lot of people are switching to vapes. So, and part of the issue there is, of course,
also not feeding tax.
Oh yeah, no, because this is an illegal product, right? So what I'm holding here, so people are going to the black market to get that. There's two things going on: switching to the black market, but also switching products. And at the moment, there is no access to a vape that is taxable, right? Either it's considered a medicinal product, in which case it's not taxable, or it's considered an illegal product, in which case it's not taxable. So I think a big part of the solution here has to be the full legalization of recreational vaping. And then, yes, you can put a tax on the vapes that are equivalent to what you have on tobacco, although it should be a lower tax because, as you would have heard Brian and myself say too many times, vapes are about 95% less harmful than cigarettes anyway. So if you're putting a tax on to compensate for the harm of the product, it should have a lower tax. But I think that's the solution here. You might not be raising more revenue from it, which I'll lose no sleep over. I don't want the government to have extra revenue. But I think the solution in this space is to legalize vapes, and that will just blow open the black market. I mean, that'll really undermine the black market as it is. I mean, vapes is the only technology that has got people to stop smoking when they didn't want to stop. There are other people who have wanted to stop and tried to stop for other reasons. Vaping is the only thing that has got people to stop when they actively didn't want to stop. I know most of the people I know who vape weren't trying to stop smoking, and then they just accidentally did, which is a remarkable thing that the government would then ban that, drive that into the arms of the black market. Then we have this booming black market, hole in revenue, and a bunch of people missing out on access to what they need.
Well, we're coming close to the end of our time. I told them that to put us on a panel together for 15 minutes was lunacy, but nobody listened. So anyway, we are where we are. So look, I think that we expected to be critical of a Labor budget. We didn't expect to be as critical as we've got cause to be for a coalition response. As we all know here in this room, but as people watching us on the live stream or watching this recording afterwards need to hear, in response to the question that Barry Cassidy, formerly of Insiders on ABC, opined on X, he sort of put up his post that he said, oh, but like, surely people understand there's no way of tackling inflation and delivering cost of living relief. And I said to him, Barry, it's called tax cuts. Like tax cuts that are funded, if you will, by reductions in wasteful government spending. And we don't have enough time to go into that in this panel, but the Libertarians believe that we can absolutely walk and chew gum at the same time. We have a government that's just grown immeasurably huge. There is an insane amount of waste, and we really want to tackle wasteful government spending to fund tax cuts, which are not only easing cost of living pressures by, as Albanese's electricity subsidies would say they are, offsetting the cost of something, but we're actually wanting to leave money in the pockets of you, of the Australian taxpayer, so that you can decide what that money should be spent on, or even not to spend it at all. There's a crazy thing. Someone said like, oh, what's the difference between a subsidy and a tax cut? You don't have to spend a tax cut. You can save it. So I'll look forward to talking a lot more about libertarian economic policy on the campaign trail. Thank you so much, John, for helping us all be here by founding the party in the depths of Canberra in the Treasury clandestine sort of splinter movement. Thank you everyone for listening to the first of, I hope, many budget responses. The next one, of course, I hope to deliver from the Senate chamber in much better seating that is red. Hopefully with your help, we can make that happen. Thank you very much.
Good luck, Jordan.
Jordan, from the Senate chamber in much better seating, also wearing much better clothing, I hope. This is the standard that I expect from you when you give your maiden speech in the Senate. 3-piece. I will allow a cravat in place of the bow tie, but that is the only concession I will make. Okay? I've made myself clear. All right, we are nearly due for a break. We have complimentary tea and coffee in the corner there for you. There's a bunch of volunteers who can show you around what's on the back table there. Don't forget, if you'd like some historic merchandise, it is in this corner over here. But before we get to the break, we're going to find out, it's a little experiment in economics. We're going to find out whether Carly, myself, and Jordan, between the three of us, are only equilibrium celebrities, or whether our signatures actually have some value. I've donated both of these books to the party. All of the proceeds from this will go to the party. The way this will work is the winning bid will then go and see the volunteers, make a payment direct to the party, and then we will hand these books over. Retail price is $80. I have my wonderful assistant here who's going to keep her eyes peeled for bids. Who already has a copy of one of these books, by the way? Raise your hands. All right. Any good, or did it put you to sleep? Or maybe that's why it was good. Maybe that's the appeal, is it? All right. So can we get an opening bid? I'm going to be ambitious here. I'm going to try and get retail price right out of the bat so I don't have to worry about whether I've maybe lost value. $80. Thank you very much. We have $80 in white. Carly, over to you. You keep your eyes out for any further bids. Can I get it? That's 100. We're taking 20s at the moment, so 120. Looking for 120. Oh, okay. Lots of hands. Who have you got in the front here? Josh, that's 21. Who said 150? Oh, down the back, we got 150 down the back. What a relief that my signature didn't detract from the value of the books.
I'm pretty sure it was mine.
I can tell you. All right. We got 150 down the back here. Any advance on 150? I'll take 10s. I'll go 160. We got 160 on the corner over here. 180 down the front here. 190 over on the corner here. 190. Can we get to 200 for both of these books? We got 200 down the back. A new bidder. New bidder has entered the game. We have $200. Can I get 210? Can I get, oh, okay, Josh, 210 down the front, 220 on the side over here. We've got 220. I'll take 10s. I'll take 10s. 230 we're looking for. We have 220, looking for 230, going once. Okay, we have a new bidder. We have, is that Mr. Peppard? You're here. Wonderful to see you. We have Richard has entered the chat. He is in at $230 for both of these books. 240 down the front. I'll take 250. I'll take 250, Richard. 250. We're looking for 260. I'm not going to drag it out. We got 260, 270. 270, be quick or forever hold your peace. Going once, 260 down here. We have 270 down the back. A new bidder has entered the chat. 270, looking for 280 down the front. 290, anybody? 290. 290. All right, we are going, okay, we got 290 down the back. We're looking for 300. Can we get to the big 300 for the party? Richard has entered again. We have 310 now. This is going fast. 320, looking for 320. 320. Both of these books signed by the lead I was about to say presidential candidate, the lead Senate candidate. Give it time, give it time. The lead Senate candidate, myself and Carly, I believe it was 310. I believe we're out down the back here right now. 310 down the back, looking for 320. Going once, 320. 330, going twice at 330 down the back. 330 down the back and sold. Thank you very much. All right. If you can make a donation to the party, once I've got that confirmed, I'll give you both of these. Ladies and gentlemen, take 15 minutes break. We'll see you shortly. They say herding libertarians is like herding cats. I think that's being mean to cats. Please find your seats. We'll have plenty of time to chat after today's proceedings are done. Carly, what do you reckon? If I start singing, is that going to bring him into line?
I think everyone's just going to run.
Everyone will leave. We'd have an empty room in front of us. What do you reckon? Oh,
No, you know what they're all doing? They're currently really busy either fundraising for the party or downloading our podcast.
Downloading. So
to be fair,
yes, yeah, downloading our podcast, definitely.
lots of tech-savvy people in this room, I can see.
Well, I'm seeing the candidates. The candidates they've chosen are really, really good, actually, because they've all got the gift of the gab, and you can tell because they're the ones still talking. Alrighty, we invite you to take your seats. We're going to get started into the second half of today's program. For those who came in late, like Richard and Paul Barker and all the candidates that just sort of waltzed on in when they felt like it, I feel like I need to reintroduce my co-host here. This is Carly, and together we are the Oddcast. How many episodes have we been going for?
We've actually done 12. Can you believe it? That's 3 months of me putting up with you.
Well, wow, you stole the words right out of my mouth. Believe it or not, that's, well, I mean, how long do we go for? About 2.5 hours per episode. So we're up into the dozens of hours of us out in the world, in the wild, and the world hasn't ended yet. So I think we must be doing okay.
In all seriousness, guys, it's a great podcast if you're looking for talking points to open these conversations up.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what a lot of people fear. You know, being a libertarian, we're awkward at best. But being in a room where other people are discussing politics and you're like, hey, this is an opportunity for me to like slide on in there and like say my piece. That podcast is all about just having normal discussions. It's not a political podcast. We're not debating policies.
And if you go back to the start and you start watching from the beginning, you'll see this wonderful progression as the room slowly gets built, the set gets built, as the equipment slowly gets upgraded. But how long before your partner realizes that you're sneaking out with the credit card to buy more gear and puts a stop to it?
I think he's just sick of my whinging, to be honest.
Yeah?
Yeah, so we've got this thing where we've got this like massive learning arc where we're trying to like be Joe Rogan-esque before having the budget of $100 million from Spotify.
Look, that'll be a nice day.
It is
that will be a good day. But in the meantime, we are looking for our first ever sponsors and advertisers for the podcast. So if you'd like to get in on the ground floor of the Oddcast, then come and have a chat to one of us. We'd be very happy to hear from you.
We would. But I think more importantly, you guys need to start to feel brave to go and have those conversations. And that is a really great way. Just like slip that in. Hey, you should listen to this. They're speaking about what you're talking about.
Yeah. Now, we have some entertainment for you because, of course, it hasn't been entertaining
It's not
already.
us, don't worry.
It's not us. Don't worry about that. It's two politicians or two aspiring politicians. How much worse could it possibly be? We're going to invite two of the Libertarian Party's Victorian Senate candidates up on stage. We're going to play a game of celebrity heads. Who knows the game Celebrity Heads? Oh, not many. Okay, so a lot of you are like me. I didn't know it either, but I had to look it up and I watched some videos. Basically, what's going to happen is we're going to have Matt, we're going to have Jordan sitting on the stage, and behind their heads where they can't see them, a name is going to come up. That is the name of the character that they are playing. Now, here's the thing. They don't get to see that name. All they get to do is ask questions, and we answer those questions, and they have to figure out who they are. What is the name on the board behind them based on our answers to their questions? They do get one advantage, that is that they know the category, and both of them will be different politicians from major parties in Australia. All right? So we're all playing this game. Our candidates are going to be the ones trying to deduce the name that is behind them, and we are going to be honestly answering the questions that they ask us. And our honesty is important. We have to be loud. We need to get involved and let them know what the answer is, because that's how they're going to hopefully figure out who they are. Excuse me. So, without further ado, would you please welcome our two Celebrity Heads contestants, Jordan and Matt. Now, first, just a quick honesty check here. I just want your assurance. Yes, looking straight ahead. Thank you. Don't look at me. I want your assurance that there has been no cheating. Neither of you are aware of the name that sits behind your head. If you are aware, then you're wanting to be politicians. So just start practicing lying and tell us that you're not aware, because that'll be more fun for the rest of us.
Can we point out this cheeky emoji?
Look, I wasn't going to, but you can. So I think that's fine. Okay, so I believe the way this is going to work is you guys are going to alternate in asking the audience questions. But first, we need a drum roll, please, because right now I can't see the names. Are they being blocked out by the shadow here, or have we not got them on the screen? Not on the screen. All right, can we reveal the names? Okay. Okay. All right, this is going to be good. How are they going to tell them apart? Okay, gentlemen, take it away.
That's not even helpful as a clue. Okay, so...
Can we get the right one?
There you go. You and me.
My peripheral vision is terrible, don't worry. Am I... Oh, I thought this was an uncontroversial question, but it might not be. Am I male? Okay.
Hang on, we don't know this. No one
Yeah.
Better question.
You can only speak from personal experience.
More tolerant question. Do I identify as male?
Yes, you identify as a male.
currently.
Right. Do I support the e-safety commissioner?
Just a quick, sorry to interrupt. If Matt had asked that question, what would your answer have been?
I was about to ask that question.
Okay, yeah.
Took the words right out of my
We
mouth.
might have a problem here.
Well, I was going to ask, do I support big government? But if they're from the major parties, that has to be yes, right?
You don't get bonus questions. That's cheating. He does want to be a politician.
I play by my own rules. Do I support co-parenting people's children with regards to their use of the internet?
Yes.
There are not many audiences that you could ask that question and the audience would actually be able to confidently give you an answer. So give yourselves a round of applause for being engaged and knowing what's going on.
Do I support sending military material and aid to Ukraine?
Yes.
This is really not helping.
Yeah.
Do I hate the idea of people keeping more of their own money and paying less tax?
Yes.
There's serious flaws with this game.
I promise you they are two different people.
Are they though? That's not a question. That's not a question. Am I from Victoria?
Okay, slightly non-political question. Would you be happy if your daughter brought me home? or son.
That would raise so many more questions. Hey.
Do I own multiple investment properties?
Yes.
Does that narrow it down though?
Am I a fan, excuse me, of raping and pillaging the childcare sector while you pay through the nose for it, while I make lots of money?
Depends on what you mean by that.
Too
I don't even understand the
Too
question.
obscure? I must be thinking of someone different then, sorry. Bad question.
Leading question. Okay, so am I from Queensland?
Yes.
Sounds like someone might be onto it.
Am I from New South Wales?
Yes.
Yeah. Do I wear a red tie?
Only an aspiring politician would actually know that.
Okay, all right. I'll do more public knowledge. Was my previous job before becoming a politician in the public service?
Yes.
Have I lifted much of a finger in prosecuting people who prosecuted us throughout COVID?
No.
No. You realise, Matt, the idea is to ask questions that help you to differentiate.
Yeah, I've kind of clued on. Yeah,
I'm
I've
trying.
realised
Yeah.
that a lot of these questions are not helping.
Well, I thought one of them might be handsome and they want their daughter to bring them home, but apparently not.
Okay. If I actually guess this, and this is who I think it is, I'm going to be really mad with the people who did this, who made this up. Am I Peter Dutton? Yes. Oh, no. I hope that's the first and last time I ever have to say that sentence.
Matt, take a wild guess if they've lined up Peter Dutton on this side.
I have absolutely no idea who this could be. Honestly, I should have asked better questions. Am I Elmer Fudd?
Matt, you could have asked the question, do I constantly brag about the fact that I grew up in commission housing with my single mum?
Can we talk about the fact that
he's never
Peter Dutton?
mentioned that.
Can we talk about the fact that Peter Dutton is like a vampire and looks exactly the same as a young person as he does now? Like,
I thought you were going to say looks exactly the same as a spud, but maybe that's just me. All righty, round of applause for our candidates, please. All righty. Thanks, Carly. Must get the streaming audio. I now have the pleasure of introducing someone that I have an enormous amount of respect for, someone who is a slightly controversial inclusion in today, and I know because there's been whispers in the background. So I wanted to take a moment to actually talk a little bit about Morgan before we get him up to speak. You see, Morgan Jonas is with us today and he's speaking. He's here at our invitation, he's here at Jordan's invitation, and he said to me before, as soon as he was invited, he knew he had to come and he wanted to speak. And I'm really pleased that he is. Because a lot of you really only came across Jordan during COVID or maybe after COVID with his involvement as he got really involved in Victorian politics. But actually, there's a lot more to Morgan and his history than that. I'm going to give Morgan credit for a couple of key things that I think are really significant. Number one, he was one of the first to begin raising the alarm about the influence of the Belt and Road Initiative. He was doing that before it was cool. And let me ask you this. Was he wrong or was he right? He was right. He was one of the first to stand up on the issue of lockdowns and COVID. He was resolute. He was staunch. He was there with us in the trenches. I consider him to be a brother in arms from those times. He had his door kicked in. He was arrested. They tried again and again to intimidate him, and he refused to be intimidated. Was he wrong or was he right? He was right. He's one of the most courageous people that I know. And now, he's decided and he's agreed with us to put aside differences from previous elections and say, hey, we share so much. We have so much in common. There is so much common purpose among us. Let's put our efforts together and let's work together in this election. Would you please warmly put your hands together for Morgan Jonas?
All right, a really big thank you to Topher. Very, very kind words and very deeply appreciated. And I'd like to extend my appreciation to every single person here today. David, Jordan, Rob, the entire Libertarian Party. It's an absolute honour to be here. And when Jordan invited me to be here, absolutely, I knew that I had to come. So I'm going to keep this talk relatively short and concise. My usual style is to just make a few points and then freestyle a speech. But I guess in the spirit of getting the message across, I have a speech that I'm going to read relatively accurately. So for any of you who don't know me, my name is Morgan Jonas. I'm the leader of a state-based party called the Freedom Party. And once again, it's an honor for me to be here at the Libertarian campaign launch. Let me say that although we may be from different parties, you and we share much in common. I think we can all agree that we share an absolute belief in the principles of liberty. We believe in the common good of people and the capability that regular people have to govern their own lives. And we share a mutual desire for a future free from government overreach and control. Now, before I go further, I just want to rewind a little bit back to the Victorian state election of 2022, which in the end was an absolute catastrophe and something I would describe as a complete mess. Do we remember the mess that it was back then? Okay, just wanted to make sure that we remember. Mistakes and missteps were made. Some of them were made by myself, which I own, and some were made by others. But as a result of these circumstances and the disunity that ensued at the time, the election outcome was impacted in ways that were detrimental to the cause of freedom, detrimental to the rights and visions and dreams of Victorians. And the worst aspect of this is that was entirely preventable. Entirely preventable. And I'm very happy is the wrong word. I'm pleased to be able to say that, because it is the truth, and truth, regardless of whether it's good or bad, I feel really needs to be confronted in every way, shape and form. Now, since that time, which has been a few years, I have reflected a lot. I believe that I've learned a lot. I haven't been so engaged publicly. I've spent this time to develop a small business, which by grace of God is doing very well, but definitely deep lessons learned. And the conclusion that I come to after these years and after lots and lots of reflection is that the only way to save Australia from what I would describe as certain impending tyranny is for good, decent, liberty-focused people to stick together as true allies, working towards shared objectives, no matter the cost. Failure to do so, in my view, will undoubtedly lead to the demise of our beautiful nation. So, although this is a Libertarian Party event and there's some other similar parties out there, the differences that we share, I say, should take a very secondary position to the shared objective of reducing big government and serving in the interests of all Australians, with a focus that is never, ever tilted away from human dignity and the freedom and liberty of all people in our beautiful country. So allow me to state and to put on the record that I do not see any person in this room as a competitor. I see each and every one of you as my allies. I want each and every one of you to succeed. I want the Libertarian Party to succeed, because in doing so and meeting those ends, Australia will succeed. We've seen too much control for too long. It needs to be fought against for the sake and future of our nation. Now, I'd like to shift gears for just a moment, and thank you for the attention that you're showing me so far, towards a certain individual who happens to be in the room today. I'm going to talk a little bit about him. He's somebody that I have had the pleasure of getting to know over the past few years. This is a man that I would describe as intelligent, intuitive, genuine. He's a leader. He is a strong communicator and listener. He's somebody who unites people. And most importantly, I would describe him as a man who cares deeply about our country. And that is, of course, the Victorian Libertarian lead Senate candidate, and somebody I'm proud to call a friend, Jordan Ditloff. When it comes to Jordan, I am beyond impressed by what I see. Among many positive attributes he possesses, what strikes me is his unique ability to pull people together from different places, to get them talking, engaging in dialogue for common objectives. I think that we can all agree that this is a skill that is greatly needed in our nation's capital today. Furthermore, Jordan demonstrates an example of the universal truth that one's past need not dictate one's future. Jordan is a real man. He owns the past events of his life, and through sheer grit, determination, and a relentless desire to transform a negative to a positive, Jordan is now in a position to serve the public in ways in which very few people can. The evolution of this man is admirable and worthy of everybody's respect. In addition to his hard-working character, and if you follow Jordan on X, you can clearly see the sheer amount of time and effort and dedication and sacrifice that he's putting into this campaign. Let me say that Jordan is about as politically astute as they come. His ability to dissect and prosecute all matters political is of a very, very high standard. And I have no doubt in my mind that he has what it takes to get elected in this year's upcoming federal election. And should he be elected, I also have no doubt that he will serve as a tremendous asset to the cause of freedom, and he will serve as a wonderful asset to the people of this country. This just about wraps up my talk, ladies and gentlemen. I'd just like to leave by once again stating my gratitude for being here. Thank you again to Jordan and anybody in Victoria who cast their vote for the Libertarian Party in this federal election and for Jordan would be making a great decision at the ballot booth. So thank you very much and catch you soon.
I think one of the most important skills that is lacking in so much of politics is the ability to work with people where we agree with them. And that sounds silly, doesn't it? Of course it's easy to work with people where we agree with them. Well, the problem is there is almost no human being on the planet where we agree on everything. And in politics, we're so quick to go and find the differences, to find the areas where we don't agree and to then use those as wedges. And if we don't do it to ourselves, we so easily allow other political parties to do it to us and to our allies. And I'm really encouraged by the maturing, I think, of the freedom movement. We saw a lot of people really get involved in politics as a result of what happened with COVID down here in Victoria. Now, in the case of Morgan, of course, he was already involved before that, but that certainly brought him to the fore and so many others with him. And it's wonderful to have all these people coming through, but with that comes a certain amount of political inexperience and a certain amount of maturing that needs to happen. And I think it's so encouraging to be watching that process play out in real time. We're watching alliances form. We're watching people putting aside the differences and really beginning to build the bonds and recognize the things that unite us all. Gabe, are you ready? All right, we're going to enjoy some wonderful music. How funny was this man in the first half? Honestly. And how nice is it to hear actual jokes again that aren't just like woke political nonsense? Let's just all nod along with something that we agree with. Absolutely wonderful.
Thanks very much, Dave.
Now we're going to hear some music. Please welcome Gabe.
Well, it'll be fun. There'll be jokes in the music. Actually, I just want to point out something. During the break, I had a good opportunity to speak to a few people who were watching a lot of the stuff I was doing during the pandemic. And I guess that's probably part of the reason why I've performed a couple of times now for Libertarians and also even for Morgan's party. One night I did a thing. It was an interesting time because I built up quite a big following during the pandemic while I was making all these videos, condemning the government, questioning all their tactics, and I was making it funny, so it was kind of entertaining, and I wasn't really thinking about it at the time, but, built up this huge fan base, and it was going so good. And then we came out of lockdown, and I had this massive new fan base of people that weren't allowed into any of the venues that I was performing in, so I couldn't do it. Anyway, so that was kind of sad, but I'm going to start off with a little story that was in Lygon Street, Carlton, not that long ago, and there was this old Italian busker playing the guitar. Now, he was playing the Godfather theme, you might remember. You know that one? Goes like this, goes. He wasn't playing it like that, though. He was doing this. He was going like, he was doing that. And I went up to him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, that's beautiful. I play guitar as well. I want to learn how you play the guitar in that way. What's the secret?" And he said, "Parkinson's." So yeah, I'll try and sing today, but I have got, I'm a little hoarse today. Downstairs, I'm a big one. But today, yeah, I got a bit of a throat thing going on. But yeah, it's been like early on in my career, I was I felt a little bit, because growing up in an Italian house and then you try and do comedy for a lot of Aussie audiences, it was kind of tricky, And I always wondered how some of our more famous like pop stars would have sounded if they were, like Italian background. So I've come up with like maybe Eric Clapton, if he was Italian, he might have sung this song. Mario's my name, and I live with my parents. Soccer is my game. I have an ethnic appearance. I must be strong and stand up to Mom. She says that I'm too young to leave home. I'm 47. Well, just on that, all right? I know you Aussies. Oh, maybe it didn't want to turn on. There you go. A bit like me, I wasn't turned on last night either. But like Aussies used to make, I used to play footy, Aussie rules. I was the only Italian in the team, right? And they used to make fun of me, because I was still living at home with my parents, I was, I know I was 28 when I moved out, okay? And I know what you're all thinking. Wow, that's young for an Italian. Yeah, I was a rebel. But anyway, right? I remember like, they used to make fun of me, when are you going to get out of the house, you big mama's boy? When are you going to start your life, And I'm like, the Aussies are just jealous because if you live with your parents, you have to pay board. Now, I don't know if you know this little fact, ladies and gentlemen, but we don't get charged board. In fact, we actually get paid to stay home. I didn't want to move out. I was on 10 grand a year plus car allowance. Yeah, she used to give me money. And here's the stuffed up part, right? You ready for this? I was at the age of 26, 1997, I had a $70,000 a year sales job. That was in the 90s, right? Oh yeah, big money. And my parents were both just very simple process workers in a factory. So they were making about 32 each. So my income was bigger than theirs combined. I wasn't helping with bills, let me assure you that. I certainly didn't do anything around the house. And yet she would still give me money. Yeah. I never asked for it, because if you said to Mum, I can have $100, she'd say no. But this is what you do. It's a little bit of a tactic. You walk out of the house and you just, under your breath, but obviously loud enough out here. Oh shit, I'm a bit low on petrol. $50 will just come leaping at you. Because of course she's starting to think you're going to get stranded, right? But I didn't think anything of this, because I've got an older brother and a sister, and I saw them go through a bit of that. I just thought that's how it is. Didn't even question it. But then one day I saw their pay packets on the table and I just got the calculator, did some maths, and I thought, wow. I said, I'm 26 years old. I earn more than my parents combined, and I'm taking money off them as well. I was a shit son, mate. I'm telling you. So I decided, all right, enough of that. I mean, life was good, though. Don't get me wrong. I used to get up in the morning, go to the toilet. By the time I got back, the bed was done, mate. Clothes neatly folded on the bed, breakfast ready to go. And I went to work one day, and I came home and looked under the bed. My mum had put all my pornos in alphabetical order. And to this day, I really don't know how she got them apart. But anyway, so if you got that joke, you should be ashamed of yourselves, all of you. So I decided, though, that after doing a bit of soul searching and reflecting on the money that I was on, thought I've got to stop this. I've got to tell Mum, that she's done enough for me, and I've got to stand on my own 2 feet. I'm a grown man, right? So I decided to have that talk with her, because I mean, and to make me feel even more guilty, she's walked in the room, and I looked at what she was wearing, and I realised she wears that dress all the time. She never spends any money on herself. She wears that same dress just about every day. And I thought, I've got to say something here. And then I thought, nah, fuck it. It looks good on her. So anyway, we never had that conversation. What about if, now everyone is familiar with John Cougar Mellencamp. Now he put out a song called Jack and Diane. And that's John Cougar was from a southern state in the USA. So all his songs really reflected his culture. You may remember, a little ditty about Jack and Diane, 2 American kids growing up in the heartland. So you get the gist. He's singing about kids in his area. What if he grew up in Melbourne and had Italian parents? Maybe the song would have sounded more like, little ditty about Maria and John, two Italian kids growing up in the heart of Lygon. Johnny wants to be a porno star. Maria and John's love life was in the back of John's car because even though they're in their early 30s, they still live with their parents, and his parents never went out on a Saturday, so he couldn't use his house. And he was a bit of a tight ass, didn't like forking out for hotels. And if you think I'm speaking from experience, you can all get stuffed, all right? Just make it a bit more interesting. Imagine he was Middle Eastern and grew up in Melbourne. Little ditty about Mustafa and Habibi. Two Middle Eastern kids growing up in the heart of Brunswick. Mustafa wants to own Donna Kebab shop. And knowing you what Habibi looked like because her head was covered up. I'm glad you liked that joke because when I performed it at the Broadmeadows Mosque. Oh yeah, life goes on long after the thrill of letting off a bomb. Anyway, what if you? Well, if I'm going to do ethnic groups, might as well do an Aussie version of Jack and Diane. So, little ditty about Cheryl and Trev, two Aussie battlers driving around in a '54 Chev. Been 3 years since Trevor's had a job. His wife's 20, she's got 4 kids, and she's a fucking fat slob. Anyway. Oh yeah, life goes on long after the thrill of your 53rd bomb. Anyway. Yeah, see, I grew up in the northern suburbs, from Glenroy originally, right? And it's near Broady. I remember there was a woman in Broadmeadows that we knew. She had 10 sons. They're all called Wayne. All of them. I said to her one day, I said, "What did you call all the boys Wayne?" She goes, "Just easy, you know. Just go, Wayne," and they all come. I said, "Fair enough. All right, but what if, like, you need to single one of them out because one of them's done something bad, one of them's done something naughty, you need to get just the one." She just goes, "Oh, I just use their surname." You know, I had it good growing up in the 80s, you know. 1989, I was an 18-year-old, started going to bars and clubs, and I noticed I was still considered exotic back then, being Italian. Oh yes, my skin was nice and tan compared to the other white boys, and you know, once I spoke to some Aussie girls and I told them that I was Italian or a wog, you could see that rebellious streak come out, and they knew that going out with someone like me would piss mum and dad off. So I had an edge, had an advantage. It's good. I like the Aussie girls. They were good. Looked after me. Italian girls did fuck all right? And I'm going back to those days thinking how good it was. But now, if it was the same now, forget it. Because I'm one of you guys now, apparently, according to, you know, the wokies. I'm white. I'm just like you. I'm no different to you. And the girls don't see us as exotic anymore. It's really sad. I know. Kind of makes me wish I was Sudanese. But anyway, let's... You know, in spite of the fact that us Italians do have really, really good food, we do, not going to lie, it's great, right? And I do like it, and I'm not sick of it, but I do like Aussie tucker as well. And if you're wondering what I mean by that, I'm talking about your steak and veg and your roasts. We didn't have that stuff growing up, you know? So when I started, you know, going to my mate's house for dinner and stuff, it was good. Loved it, steak and veg, you know? I mean, when it comes to cooking, though, like, I kind of think, like, you know, the Aussies, when it comes to their cooking, I don't think they put any fancy stuff in their food, though. You know, none of that fancy stuff like fucking salt. You know what I mean? So your food's a bit bland, okay? Yeah, so I've made a song for it. I've made a song, and it's to the tune of Royals by Lord, but this is about the difference between Aussies and Italians in the way they cook. It goes like this. You know, I never had steak and veg until I had dinner with my Aussie friends at their house, because they use lots and lots of Heinz Big Red. And then they made me a salad, but it had no dressing. Because when the Aussies cook, they just get meat, chuck it in a fry pan, cook it on one side, then they flip it over, they don't care. No spices to give it flair. In the salads they cut up lettuce, chuck in a tomato. If you're lucky, maybe you'll get mayo, they don't care. But us Italians, as you're aware, we use garlic and oil to give our food some taste. Then we use tomato paste and hot chili for a buzz, and then we say fanculo. That's Italian for up your ass, so va fanculo. To your whole damn family. There you go. Now, I know. Just on that, you notice at the end I say to your whole damn family, because that's how Italians hate. When we hate someone, we hate everyone you're related to as well. Doesn't matter if they've done shit. You're related to you, we don't like them. I reckon most of you at some point in your lives would have heard that term fanculo or vafanculo. You would have heard Italian. And I know for a fact that Aussies think it means, like most Aussies think it means to get effed, right? It actually has the same kind of connotation, like in terms of how it's meant to make you feel, but it doesn't actually. I'll tell you what it actually means, all right? I'll break it down for you. Vart means go, fart means to do, and in culo means in your ass. So, extrapolate that out, you get go do it in your ass. There you go. So next time an Italian says to you, ma vaffanculo, you say, no, you go do it in your ass, you weirdo. Yeah, we are. We do weird insults. Like, for example, a dickhead in Italian is a testa di cazzo, but literally translated, that's a head of dick. Seriously, can you imagine saying that in English? Hey, don't go over to Macca's house, he's a head of dick. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for having me again. I'll just finish by saying that it's lovely to have the support of the Libertarians Party. Definitely got my vote. I'm going to vote for you. So, yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a party that aligns with my beliefs. You know, like we are sort of being well and truly overgoverned and to death, really. So that's why it was so frustrating watching all these dickheads line up. Well, can you give me another jab? I've only had 4, right? Like fucking idiots, right? You know, I just didn't get it. And it's great to see that there are, like, you know, I'm sure most of you at the start of the pandemic thought you were going nuts, yeah? Because you're thinking, how can't people see? But there is, and look, you know what? We've woken a few more up, which is great, but we've still got a lot of work to do. So anyway, all the best and congratulations, Jordan. You're going to make it, mate. Thank you.
All righty, thank you so much, Gabe. Can we get a round of applause also for all the technical team? I'm going to say that one was for Gabe because I just mentioned his name. Can we get another one for all the technical guys, the guys who are doing all the sound, all the video? I don't know if you saw because there's a barrier there, but like one of the gremlins just came out from under the stage and cleaned up the microphones just from like right around my feet there. Always a little bit scary. I don't know who feeds these guys, keeps them in cages out the back of the stage. I'm not quite sure, but they do wonderful work and they help everything to run very, very smoothly for us. Well, we're coming very, very close to the end of our afternoon today. I've just got a couple more things we want to say before we're going to introduce Matt Ford, and he's going to have a few words with us, and then he's going to introduce Jordan Ditloff, of course, the lead Senate candidate for this campaign. And then that'll be the end of the day. But I do want to let you know, number one, there's tea and coffee. There's lots of goodies out there. We're trying to get the brand out as far as we can. So talk to the volunteers and find out what goodies you can get for free. There are, of course, the nostalgia goodies in the back corner. I do have a few more books left as well. So if you'd like to grab a copy, I've got a few here of either... I've got 1 or 2 of my new book, and I've got a box there with some of my original book, Good People Break Bad Laws, in it. There will be photos over here. If you want to get a photo with one of the candidates, there's going to be photos over here when we're done for the day. And Carly, what would we like people to do? What would help us as the Oddcast, do you think? I don't think we've mentioned this yet.
No, we haven't.
No.
Firstly, I'd like a show of hands of you guys who are actively out there speaking to your friends and families about being a libertarian. Show of hands. All right, the rest of you, turn around and look at those people. Keep your hands up, keep your hands up. The rest of you all look at the people with their hands up and ask yourself why you're not. Yeah, what's holding you back?
Look at the people with their hands up and feel bad about yourself.
Feel shame.
Okay? Okay?
Shame.
Yeah.
So in all the seriousness, guys, we're doing the Oddcast because we want to encourage conversation. So if you haven't yet, take out your phones, jump on YouTube, jump on Spotify. It's the Oddcast. It's just us having conversations that you two should be having at your dinner tables with your family and friends. It's not about screaming and grabbing pitchforks. It's about just having common sense conversations. And I think you guys will get a lot out of it.
100%. So the Oddcast. Excellent listening on the way here. It's good. I'm told it's very good if you drive tractors. It's a wonderful tractor podcast. I've been assured by multiple people that work on the land. Well, Carly, I believe you have the magic words for our number 2 Senate candidate for the Libertarians in Victoria.
I do, and forgive me, I'm going to read off the piece of paper here, but Matt is a staunch Libertarian who's dedicated to removing government interference from the lives of young Australians struggling to afford a mortgage and soaring energy bills. Thank you. I need this. With a long track record as a candidate, Matt was most recently representing the Libertarian Party in Southern Metropolitan at the 2022 state election, where he more than doubled the state vote from 2018. We're excited to have Matt representing the party once again, fighting for a freer Australia, ensuring the voice of everyday Australians is heard loud and clear. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Ford.
All right, well, that doesn't sound anything like me, but anyway. Let me just attach this. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to start by asking a very simple question, which is this. How good is it to be a libertarian? Yeah? And don't be fooled by my somewhat youthful exuberance. I've been around the block a little while, 10 years this year actually, of involvement. So I feel quite confident in saying that while being a Liberal Democrat was great, being a Libertarian, much better. In addition to all of the usual benefits, speaking your mind, being honest, treating other people with decency, having fun the way you like to have fun, it also turns out to be a good time for us in other ways, because I think, and I'm sure most of you have cottoned onto this too, the culture seems to be moving in our direction. The winds of change seem to be blowing our way for once, whereas for the past, God, as long as I've been alive probably, which is scary, they've been going the other way. So the rest of the world is slowly but surely waking up to the ideas that we all hold dear to our heart and have for many years. Obviously, some examples of this would be our comrades and friends across the Dutch, ACT, in the ACT Party in New Zealand, who are doing great things as part of the coalition government there. Our brother-in-arm, Javier Milei, in Argentina. Let's give it up for him. It's nice to have Argentina associated with positive things. It's been a while. And even in the mighty US of A, Donald Trump, who's not much of a libertarian himself in the pure sense of the word, has certainly engaged libertarian ideas, and I think we'd all agree that the best parts of his policy, which he seems to be tracking ahead with full steam ahead, are the libertarian ones. Obviously, the Doge, the Department of Doge. He and Elon Musk are doing great work, and if Gabrielle's still here, if it's any solace, your autistic son might too grow up to be the richest man in the world one day. So, yeah. Interesting sort of closer to home, how things have changed over the last 3 years in particular. Going back even to 2022, I'm not sure how many members and supporters and volunteers in our party really knew exactly what libertarianism was all about. They knew that they were angry, they were dismayed, they were frankly pissed off at the government, both state and federal, for what had been done, particularly during the COVID years, but they weren't necessarily au fait with the finer points of libertarian. But I think that's changed, and I think that all of your presence here today is testament to that. And as strong as we were back in 2022, we couldn't have pulled off an event like this, but we can now. So thank you all for your attendance, obviously, and it's going to be a big few weeks and months ahead with the election coming up. In this part of the world, obviously, people were especially pissed off because of what the Victorian government had done to us throughout COVID. And whilst we put our best foot forward, and obviously David ran a tremendous campaign as our Senate candidate last time, following on from his amazing work in the state parliament here in Victoria, we weren't quite in a position to take advantage of that and to capitalise on the anger and the dismay that was out there in the population. And I think that people thought, oh, well, we've had Liberal for a while, let's just vote for Labor. Albo seems like a nice guy, that'll fix everything. Well, I'm sorry, they were wrong about that. Switching between the red team and the blue team, back to the red team, back to the blue team, pardon my French, it doesn't do shit. We need real change, and that's a slow process, but it has to start somewhere, and I think it's going to start here in Victoria, and I think we're going to get Jordan elected. So the question is, we all want that. How do we do it? Like, we all know what we're going to do. We're going to go out there and we're going to put a big fat number 1 next to Libertarian Party on the ballot paper. I don't even want to get started on that subject. I can't stop laughing when I see that. But really, what are we going to do? Like, it's great to have events like this. It's great to talk, make jokes, plan, but what are we going to do? Well, without hectoring you too badly, here's what I want, and I think what the party wants from all of you. Firstly, if you've got a fence, put a corflute on it. If you've got a window, put a corflute on it. If you've got a balcony, put a corflute on it. If you've got a social media account, share, post, comment, like, subscribe, promote. We obviously live in a new age. Many of you will remember many elections from before the social media age. Times have changed. Social media is where it's at. We all know what the kind of work that Jordan's been doing and the party at large on various social media platforms. If we want to win, we have to win online as well. If you've got legs and feet, get out, letterbox, door knock. If you've got a candidate in your local area, get out with him or her. Talk to local people. Stand up at stalls in the local street and at local festivals. Nothing substitutes for one-on-one engagement, as important as the social media side of things is. Obviously, if you've got arms and hands, we need you handing out how-to votes, pre-poll and election day. These things are vital. We can't win this without boots on the ground. If you happen to have any friends, which I'm sure we've all got lots of friends, between now and then, bring them to a branch meeting, okay? Everyone brings one person to a branch meeting. Think of how our party will grow. Bring 2, bring 3 people. Bring more and more people each time. Our party will grow even greater than it has in the last few years. Before the 2022 election, we had, I'm not sure how many exactly members it was, but it was just about over 10,000 or thereabouts. We've now got almost 20,000. So we're growing. You're on the right side of history. You're on the right side of the argument. You're on the right side of economics. You're on the right side of social policy. Let's keep growing the party. And there's no telling what we can achieve in the years and decades to come. Basically, our candidates who you all saw early today, they're fighting for you. We need you to fight for them as well. Even more than you would have already done, I'm sure. Speaking of the candidates, I'd just like to get, if I could, all of the lower house candidates to join me up on stage or thereabouts as best as we'll all fit, because we have a special guest. I don't think he's been mentioned yet today, but he's coming. All right. So, as much as we want these fine men and women to do well, and who knows, one of them might strike gold and win their seat, we all know that the real battle is in the Senate. 6 years of libertarian fighting for us, fighting for common sense, fighting for right, fighting for justice, fighting for you to take home more of your check at the end of the work week. And I calculated roughly that 6 years translate to pretty much 2,200 days. And I think we've all been quite amazed and frankly in awe of the work that Jordan's been able to do since he's been nominated as a candidate. His work ethic, frankly, puts the rest of us to shame. So Jordan, if you could just cool it a little bit. Actually, no, don't do that. Save that for like 5 weeks' time. I think we all know that Jordan would be a formidable force in the Senate. And whether we end up with Prime Minister Elmer Fudd or Prime Minister Lord Voldemort, at the end of the day, we need people to hold their feet to the fire and keep them honest. And in our case, we won't find anyone better to do that than Jordan Ditloff. Jordan's story is obviously well known. I'm not going to expand upon it. And I think it's a perfect sort of précis for the libertarian idea of tolerance and of forgiveness and redemption. And we all believe in giving people a second chance. We don't believe in giving socialists a second chance, but we do believe in giving people a second chance. And Jordan has, to this date, taken his second chance with more gusto than anyone could possibly have imagined. And I have very, very strong confidence that not only will he get elected, but when he does, he will take up his second chance in the Senate and simply be the greatest politician this state has ever seen. Give it up for Jordan Ditloff. All yours.
Now, Matt, just don't go anywhere for just a moment. 2 days ago, Matt messaged me and said, mate, what are you wearing to this rally? He said, we need to coordinate. And I said, okay, sent him a photo of what I was going to wear, and this is what we got. So,
Our libertarians, after all.
Libertarians, someone said herding cats. I think that's very true. But it comes with the great honour and privilege of standing on stage with lower house candidates like these. And I think that it is a testament to the strength and depth of our party here in Victoria, but all across Australia, that we have real candidates who have been volunteering and engaged with the party for a long period of time, putting up their hands to run, knowing that, you know, we are still 3 to 6 years away from winning lower house seats, knowing that they are putting their own time, money, making sacrifices within their family to support not a personality, not an individual, but an idea. And I think that that idea is an idea whose time has come. And I intend to make sure that, as I said last year when I was endorsed, we're going to make 2025 the year of the Libertarian. Can I get a round of applause for our lower house candidates? Thank you very much, guys. I'll get you to go back to your seat because the stage is not quite as big as we had expected it to be. Well, yeah, and that. No, I've been given strict instructions, no more than 3 hours. 20 minutes. No. So I think to stand here after having listened to all of the people who have spoken about me and my candidacy in the campaign is an incredibly humbling experience. I'm immensely grateful, not only for the people who spoke, but for everyone who's here. What I love about this event is how many people who are here that I've never met in person before. Many of you have shared that you've been following the campaign on socials, or that you've otherwise been observing and participating in the campaign from afar, and that this is your first time coming to an event. And to all of you here and all of you watching at home, either live or recorded, thank you for your support, and thank you for being willing to tune in and find out what libertarianism is all about. I want to speak today to those people in some respects, the people who are here in this room for the first time, maybe curious or interested to see what this is all about. The people at home who have just heard that there's been an election called and they weren't really thinking about it at all. And for the first time, they're tuning on their TV, or in this day and age, more likely switching on X or Facebook or any of the other sort of social media channels to see what their options are. Now, the Trump question that was asked in the 2024 US presidential election was, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And we've seen attempts to translate that to the Australian political space with Peter Dutton saying, are you better off now than you were 3 years ago after an Albanese term of government? I'm going to tell you the more important question, and the question that I'm going to focus on in my comments today and in my campaign. And that is whether you vote for Anthony Albanese and the return of a Labor government, or you vote for Peter Dutton and a Liberal government, do you think your life is going to be better or worse in 3 years' time? And I'm here to tell you that the answer to that question is no. And it doesn't matter which of them is elected. We are seeing more than ever before that there is no difference between the fundamentals of both major parties. We don't expect much from the Labor Party, so we're not as disappointed in them. But the Liberal Party increasingly are wearing the skin suit of Robert Menzies and masquerading as economic classical liberals and masquerading as the party of small business. That has not been true for a very long time. And I know that because I'm talking to small business owners and they feel abandoned. Something is very wrong in this country. I'm 38 and I look around and I can see me, the people my age and younger, are for the first time less well off than their parents. Many of you in this room are parents or grandparents of these generations that are falling between the cracks. And you can see that they are not receiving what they believed they were promised. Their birthright as Australians has been taken away from them. And it's been taken away from them by stealth. We are a country with incredible resource prosperity, and yet we have expensive energy and increasingly unreliable energy. We are seeing our freedoms eroded and taken away from us, be it the freedom of association, the freedom of religion, the freedom of conscience, or the very fundamental freedom of the freedom of speech. And both major parties at this election are ceding the field and surrendering to the demands of globalists, to the demands of the public health lobby, to the demands of anyone who's offended or would prefer that speech be small and inconsequential, to sacrifice our fundamental freedom of speech and expression on this altar of convenience, on this idea that we would rather be safe and comfortable than be scrutinised or have our ideas tested. Australia is a country that should have everything going for it. We should be a powerhouse. Our economy should be roaring. We should have almost no inflation. Unemployment is at around 4%, and that's being touted as this massive success. Well, I don't think it is a success. I think there's many, many people in Australia who want work and can't find it. And if you unpack the amount of employment and economic activity in our country, that is simply money sluicing through the pipes of government, being taken from you, from all of us, from our future generations, and simply reapplied and redistributed to create government jobs, to create areas of the economy where activity is simply happening. Productivity is almost an unknown word. When it comes to our culture, I was raised with parents who said that there's a difference between tolerance and promotion. And Australians are incredibly tolerant people. We're incredibly welcoming people. But more and more, at the gunpoint of government and using taxpayer funds to coerce us, and even our youngest Australians in daycare, in preschool, let alone primary school, we are seeing culture wars. We are seeing a globalist woke agenda pushed on those who are least able to perceive it or defend themselves at gunpoint through government coercion. And this is something that, as someone who would love to be starting a family of my own, I will say that my wife at one point suggested that we potentially consider getting pregnant during the campaign, and I told her that would be a disaster. You don't know what you're saying. And she said to me a couple of months ago, like, yeah, I'm sorry, you were right. This would have been like a very bad idea. But, you know, I think a lot about what kind of world, when and hopefully if we are able to start a family, I think a lot about what kind of world I'd be raising children in. And the answers to that question really are the reason I'm standing here, the reason I'm running. I am running now at 38 at the beginning of a promising, hopefully legal career that I had to fight tooth and nail to secure for myself. I had to. This time, 9 years ago, I was sitting in a prison cell, and I didn't think that the future held anything but further addiction and reoffending, let alone that I'd be able to have any kind of meaningful career, let alone that I might be able to run on the national stage for the Senate. But the reason that I'm putting all that hard work and all the effort I've invested in turning my life around and making amends for those mistakes to one side and on the back burner, and even starting a family, which is one of the most important things to me that I've always wanted, on the back burner, is because when I look at our country and when I look at the status quo and the trajectory of what the next 10 years will look like if nothing changes, I'm terrified. And I think even as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, if we looked at our country then and had to imagine what 2025 would look like, I don't think many of us would have been close to the Australia that we now have to live in every day. And I think we can feel it slipping away from us at an ever increasing rate. And this election is a crossroads. It is a fork in the road. And it's an opportunity for us to begin the political turnaround and to begin taking control of our country back for ordinary Australians, for common sense. On the campaign trail, whenever I meet anybody who I'm explaining our ideas to for the first time, almost invariably, they say some version of the words, "Oh, that just seems like common sense." And then, without me having to say anything, they laugh and stop themselves and say, "Oh, I guess it's not that common anymore." But I think it is still common. I think that there is a large portion of Australian society who quietly look at what's happening and what's being done in their name, and they feel very troubled and very uneasy. But they're looking around they're looking over their shoulder, standing at the water cooler at work, or at their barbecue at home, and they don't know whether they're actually safe to vocalize these concerns and talk about what they're seeing and how they're feeling. They don't know whether the person they're talking to will denounce them and call them a cooker, or say they're a right-wing nut job, or any of the epithets that we've all heard when you're expressing a view that diverges from the sort of the message. And I think that those Victorians need a voice. I think that what Matt said is true. In Victoria, we are the closest to what Argentina was before the election of Javier Milei. I think that in Victoria, if we think of our political situation in terms of the atomic clock, we are 5 minutes to midnight. And soon Victoria's debt and interest repayments on that debt, which are now $1 million an hour, $26 million a day, is the most recent figures for Victoria's state debt repayment. Now, I'm running for the Senate, so I don't have the ability to make inroads into our state debt, but federally, we are in not much a better position structurally. And there's very little stopping successive governments over the next 6 to 9 years from putting Australia in the position that Victoria's in right now. So if I'm elected, and many of you, and I'm incredibly grateful for this, have encouraged me to say when, but I don't want to take anything for granted. I want to make sure that whatever happens on the 3rd of May, that on the 4th of May, when I wake up on Sunday and when all of you wake up and when we're looking at the results, that I know, win, lose or draw, we got the best result we could. And that's why I've been working tirelessly since late April when I was endorsed. I've been spending basically every waking minute that I've had to put everything I have into this campaign and into this run for the Senate. And I've also done that because I want to show you, whether that's you here at this event or you watching from home, live or on recording, I want to show you someone who's running for office who isn't just telling you what they will do, making promises, because words and promises are really easy. And there was a time in my life where my words and promises didn't mean a lot. But when I decided to turn my life around and when I thought about who I wanted to be in future, I wanted to be someone who was reliable. I wanted to be someone who was a person that people could depend on. And I wanted to do sorry, not say sorry. And in this campaign, I haven't wanted people to have to guess what kind of a politician I would be. What would Jordan do if he was elected to the Senate? I wanted to show them. And over the last 12 months, I've strove to be somebody who is relentless, who is tenacious, who will fight for the rights of all Victorians. Not all Victorians are going to vote for us at the Senate. But if we're elected, my goal will be to make sure that that percentage increases and that that percentage reflects the people who either agree with our ideas under the Libertarian name or are prepared to give them a shot. And I think that it's a much, much bigger number than it's ever been in the past. And I think we have an incredible potential. I want to finish by talking about my vision for a Senate term if we won. And I think that that's really important because there's a lot of people who are saying, well, I'm scared, I'm worried. I don't like the direction the country's going in. I think that this government doesn't deserve to be re-elected. And I don't think that the Liberals are going to do much better. But I'm worried that if I vote for a minor party like the Libertarians, that I'll be wasting my vote. And that's a natural concern. That's a concern I understand. It's also a concern that the major parties will seize on and will use to try to make excuses for the fact that they've done a terrible job and to try to frighten people into supporting them. But what I want to do and what I want to finish on today is I want to lay out my vision. I want to tell you what a Libertarian Senate term could look like and the difference it could make and where we could be sitting in 5 to 6 years compared to where we are now. If I'm elected, on day one of my election being confirmed, I will be treating that as day one of the 2028 federal election campaign, where I will not be up for re-election, where we will be seeking to have more Freedom Minor Party senators and more Libertarian senators elected all around the country. That work has to begin immediately. The work of building a movement like we see in America that Trump was able to build pre-2016 and to be re-elected, the work that the Reform Party has had to do in the UK, we see the outcomes. We see the final result of those efforts, but we don't see the hard work, the grind, the unsexy stuff that went on in the background. And we need to start investing in that. Not tomorrow, not in a year, not in 2 years, and hope to see change. We need to start investing in candidates and in political parties who have genuine vision, who are prepared to do the hard work in between elections. We won't be disappearing and just withering on the vine and melting like the summer snows after the election. We will be using that momentum, using that platform to campaign for lower house candidates, to campaign for our ideas, momentum, to be a genuine alternative. We have an opposition in Australia at the moment, in the Liberals, who oppose, as the name suggests, but I think that they should be providing an alternative vision. We shouldn't have an opposition leader, we should have an alternative leader. There are many instances where the Liberals could have made positive change if they had have thought about things that way and if they were prepared to actually put the interests of Australia first instead of the interests of foreign conflicts, instead of the interests of a globalist agenda, and instead of trying to score political points in some sort of tribal football game against the Labor Party. That's why I left the Liberal Party, because I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in moving the ball forward today. I'm interested in a better future for all Australians. So if I'm elected, the work to build that movement to win lower house seats for freedom-friendly parties like the Libertarian Party in 2028 will begin immediately. I also think that there's a huge opportunity to immediately propose legislative reform, repeals and amendments that will make a difference. We've seen the difference that MPs like David Limbrick in the State House here in Victoria can make as an army of one. John Ruddick in New South Wales as well. Both of our MPs, unlike other minor party MPs, when they get this seat, we're not sitting there waiting for our leader to tell us what to do. We're not sitting there wondering how we should respond to a particular piece of legislation or how we should vote or what we should do. We're taking the initiative. We're engaging with the mainstream media. We're outflanking the Greens, the Liberals, the Labor Party on issues where we have a unique solution. Issues like tobacco excise, issues like free speech, issues like energy and repealing the nuclear ban. We don't need to wait for whatever plan Peter Dutton has to go to a focus group and go to a panel of experts to talk about how he's going to roll out nuclear energy. We want to repeal the ban immediately. We want to let the private sector tell us what their solutions and visions are for energy in Australia. And as importantly as all of that, as David said, and as Morgan alluded to, on day one, if I was elected to the Senate, I would be calling every other senator who was elected in that election and who was continuing to serve from 3 years on the crossbench. I wouldn't be waiting until I meet them on day one of work and, Senator daycare or whatever it is they call the senator's induction. I don't need to wait to be told what needs to happen and to start taking the initiative and start making things happen and building alliances on the crossbench, building a rebel alliance, a freedom caucus of parliamentarians who can actually take the initiative, can propose changes. The Senate is not the house of parliament where government is formed. And if you're worried about your preferred major party not getting up or not getting across the line in the lower house on the Green ballot and you want to support a major party, I understand. I think your vote is powerful and your preferences are powerful, but if that's your choice in the lower house on the Green ballot, that's fine. In the Senate, your vote will have no impact on which party forms government. But it is an incredibly powerful vote. To elect someone for 2 terms, the Senate has the full power to propose legislation originated in the Senate. And if we had enough of a critical mass on the crossbench, or even occasionally working with parties like the Greens or the Majors, which I would have no hesitation in doing, where we have shared values or shared positions for different reasons. The Greens have often opposed legislation for the wrong reasons, but for the right result. And we need to be focused on what a bill does, not what it's intended to do, not what they say it's going to do, but what it does, what effect it will have. And we will have the opportunity to start putting the Uni Party on the back foot. We cannot win this like a siege mentality. We cannot wait for our enemies to come to us, for bills to come to the Parliament. One thing I've learned from working with David is that by the time a bill comes to the floor of Parliament, the government's often done the numbers and it's too late. We need to be proactive. We need to be on the front foot. And the best defense is a good offense. And that is my mode. I don't have another way of being. So if you're watching this or listening to this here in person or recorded afterwards, and you're thinking, geez, I'm really unhappy with the Uni Party, I really want to vote for a Freedom minor party, but there's so many options and I'm not sure what the difference is. The difference is that Libertarians are proactive, we're pragmatic, we're going to fight hard, we're proactive, and we will never violate our principles. We will never vote for an increase in taxes or a decrease in civil liberties. Without hesitation, we will oppose those things. So I ask all of you here and all of you watching this now or later, If not now, when? And you must reach out, volunteer if you can. This election is an immense opportunity to make a difference. And if we do get this done, and if I'm elected at the end of this federal election, it will be thanks not to me and not to my efforts, but to the efforts of all of you. This is something that will be achieved by the volunteers and voters who invest in the change and hope and opportunity that my campaign brings. So thank you all for coming. This is an incredible event, and I'm so pleased to see so many faces, many people that I've not seen before. And I think we have the best chance we've ever had to scare the hell out of the major parties and change the course of our country for the future. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Yep. All right. So before we wind up, we're nearly done. There must be someone in the party who's not a true libertarian, because we're running on time. That is very strange. But before we wind up, we are just going to quickly take a photograph of the audience. Did you have a camera you wanted to take it with, or? So if anyone, I don't know, you're on an ASIO watch list. No, who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? We're all on ASIO watch lists. If anyone doesn't want to be in the photo, now's a good time. That's right. Give it to the photographer. Give it to the photographer. I'll hold that for you. Now, while we're doing that, you call cheese and stuff when you need to. Don't wait for me. As soon as you're ready.
All right, guys, everyone looking at me.
We get everyone to stand up. Yeah, punching to build the aisle in the middle.
All right.
If everyone in the back could grab the cork flutes that are along the back.
This is a participation event.
Candidates to the front, that's right. Yeah.
All righty, candidates towards the front for us. All righty, Carly, over to you.
All right, guys, everyone looking at me, keeping those eyes open. It's got a good-looking bunch of people. Love it. Hang on. Can we put our hands up? Can we pretend we're excited?
Yay!
Nice. Good work.
All right. All right, we're nearly done. Very quickly, someone come and grab this camera for us, please. Thank you. Politics is a team sport. I just want to reflect on this for a moment before we call it quits today. Politics is a team sport. There are the people that you see up the front, but their success depends on the enormous team of people that you don't see. And this is true in so many areas of life. I had the privilege of directing Battleground Melbourne, the documentary. Who's seen Battleground Melbourne? Okay, most of you. All right, if you haven't, you can watch it for free at battlegroundmelbourne.com. I had the privilege of directing that. My face is on that. But I couldn't have done that without Carly. She's one of many faces that you didn't see in that documentary, but she was actually one of my producers and helped to make it possible. And it's exactly the same in politics. You've got these candidates that are willing to go out there and be the face and cop the slings and arrows that come with that, but they can't do it without the people who aren't out in the public eye, but make it possible for them to do what they do. And it's so important. You've been talking about conversations. Let's just finish on this thought here. We've got some real opportunities to have conversations in the next 5 weeks between now and the election, don't we?
I agree. And, you know, when it's all said and done, I'm just a photographer. I'm not a political commentator like you. I'm just someone that was deeply impacted by lockdowns. And I thought, you know, I need to speak up about this. And I'm not someone that wants to campaign in politics. I'm just someone who's sick of not seeing common sense being at the core of every decision that's been made by our politicians. It long since has been about the people. It's now just about the ideology. And who here has been into the city on a recent weekend, on a Saturday or Sunday? Who's seen all the protests every week? It's the same thing, right? Yelling, screaming. Everything's a catastrophe. Everything is at this level, we've long since forgotten that we're able to just talk to each other like real people, no matter what background we have, no matter where we're from, all the diverse different interests that we have. We all still care about our friends, our families, and that's the conversation that's missing. We need to recognize that we're neighbors again and have those barbecue conversations. Go out when you're putting the bins out and say hi to your neighbor. How few people speak to their neighbors or even know their neighbors' names these days? That's not the Australia that I grew up in. I grew up in an Australia where we used to say and hi to each other, stop and have a chat. We'd have a big barbecue with everyone in your local street. And that's what's important.
And we've got Easter and Anzac Day both coming up between now and the election. Two amazing opportunities to do exactly that, to connect with people at that local level. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of this campaign launch. A quick reminder, you can get photographs with the candidates down here at the front. There's lots of merch and things up the back. I will be up there with some books. I brought a few more. So if you missed out on the auction, I've got, I think, just my original book. I think the Good Christians books have already sold out, such as Good People Break Bad
You
Laws.
start to look like Elon Musk.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I just, I'll point. Yeah. Oh, goodness. But guys, this is an opportunity for you really to get a long way involved. I see a lot of shirts here. A lot of people already are very involved. But if you could then reach out and bring somebody else, amplify, multiply yourself, that's what this party needs. That's what Jordan and all of the candidates needs. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to saying hi with you all now.
Just guys, very, very, very quickly, just on logistics. Firstly, as Topher said, I just want to thank everyone involved in my campaign team, all the candidates, all the volunteers who made this day possible. A whole bunch of you messaged me in the last couple of days asking me about this event. I ignored you both because this week was like one of my last weeks to spend time with Georgie and sort of secure the home front, but also because I actually had no idea how a lot of things were happening. And that's going to happen more and more as the campaign goes on, because I'm going to be able to focus on fewer and fewer things. But it's like a trust exercise where you close your eyes and walk off the edge, and the team is going to be there to catch me. And today's living proof of that. So thank you, everyone. Big round of applause for our volunteers. Now, I'm going to be here for about 10, 15 minutes if people want photos with myself, David, or any of the other candidates. In terms of packing up, we've brought these core flutes both because they look great for the event today, but also because we would love for you to take them home if you don't have one yet. If you're a household that has room on your front fence or in your yard for a sign, please feel free to take one or more of them. Take as many as you can, and it'll help us pack up. And that's why they're here. So grab everything you need. We've also got shirts and a couple of other bits of merch like hats and so forth. Please take this opportunity to grab what you're going to need on polling day and pre-poll if you're going to be supporting us and handing out how to vote cards. So thank you all for attending. Again, I'm incredibly humbled by the support for the event and by the support and encouragement I'm receiving at every turn for the campaign. So together we can do this, and let's make Anthony Green cringe on his retirement night at the 2025 election coverage. Thank you.